at the moment. Now, how do I do? No, that's
Yeah,
just
looks like it.
yeah, but that's just one of us. I'm sure I can do both. Oh, there we go. That's it.
All good.
Yeah,
All
I'm lower than you. I don't like that.
right. I'm taller than you now. Think of
Well, we know you're not.
that.
Tony now
Yeah,
thinks he's
yeah,
6 foot.
yeah.
Oh, hello,
Then we call
Annie.
that
We
magic
got
people, don't we?
we, okay. Actually, we got our first victim, and Caleb. If you guys can just tell us whether the sound is okay for you guys, it sounds good to us, but
Yeah.
yeah, you know what we're like.
Especially if my microphone sounds a bit crackly, I'd like to know, but I think otherwise it should be good. Cool.
Yeah, we're just there's like 4 people in there now, and the topic I just put up the title now. I didn't mention anything because it's Tony's topic really, but I think he wants to talk about the mechanization of the human mind, which is probably going to be. Oh, sound is good, excellent. Audio, video, good. Thank you, Slanty, and thank you, AE. Um, I I don't know. I hope not, but I think Tony's gonna make this extremely autistic, and I'm gonna try and keep it hopefully a bit more entertaining. It says Tony is a bit quiet actually, but he hadn't spoken, so I don't know.
That'll be why then.
Actually, yeah, you are a little bit quiet. I don't know if
Can
it's.
you do you have settings on your end to make me louder? Because I don't have any settings here in front of me.
I've got settings for my microphone.
Hmm. How strange.
That's about it, I think. Just
Just
speak, say something.
testing 1 2. Hello.
Ah, there we go. Interview. Ah, hold on. How's that? Is that better?
Try that now. Is
Oh
that
yeah,
any
yeah,
clearer
yeah,
for you?
yeah.
Yeah. That'll be
Ah,
it then.
what do you know? I just found out a new little setting. It's probably what's been screwing everything up for like the last 5 interviews.
Years. Yeah. It's that one magic button.
is
Cool.
is that better, AE? Is Tony sounding the same as I am now? Hopefully
How
he
does it
is.
sound, mate? Yeah.
7 people in now, so hopefully one of them will tell us, unless we've gone
Yeah.
mute to
I'm
both.
sure we. Sure,
It,
we can
it,
speak
it
up in a
sounds
minute.
it sounds louder to me than it was, so hopefully, and we're both on the same. That
That seems
seems
better.
better. Good, excellent. I'll raise you up a little bit more. There we go. So yeah, well, it's kind of your topic. So why don't you introduce what you want to discuss?
Well, the first thing that I was going to say is, I know you said I'll be
Oh, sorry,
autistic, but
sorry. Before we
go on.
carry on,
Yeah.
I need to highlight the fact that I'm wearing my finest farmer's clothing after working outside and like getting covered in oil and dirt and crap, and I haven't showered yet. And I'm in my Hemingway period, apart from the whiskey and the blowing my head off with a shotgun, because I have now finished the draft, the rough of Lords of Mars 3. So that book, with any luck, I have to do a bit of editing and finish the cover image and all that. But in about a week, I'm hoping it'll be out. So in time for Christmas. So
Happy days.
if you want
Happy
to
days.
read about Nazis on the moon, that's the one they've been waiting 10 years for. It's there. Right, now, about mechanizing the human brain, which goes along with Nazi thinking very well.
It can be. Well, at least they're for the Germans anyway, right? I don't think the Nazis are there with it. Yeah. So I thought, firstly, it was kind of funny that you said that it will be autistic because that would be ironic. That would be ironic if we get through this, right? Because, well, I'm hoping that, I'm growing, I'm learning things about life. I think things are changing a little bit. I myself have been a little bit German in my thinking in the past, but I am learning.
just a tad.
Just a little bit, yeah. I do like to organize things
Yeah.
as much as possible. Yeah. No. But it is all tied to that. It is all tied to that. Because as you know, I've spoken to you both on interviews and even privately about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And we had the last stream we had related to this topic was the one we did on
Yeah. A little
prayer
bit.
and personality, but
Yeah.
we didn't really go into this part of it too much. But
No.
the thing that was
Hello,
important in
drifters.
that was the idea that this personality was this thing that we can change, and obviously a part of our personality is how we think, right?
Yeah.
Um, anyway, it is connected to the first thing we spoke about during that interview, which was the idea that the mind, whether you call it the brain or the mind, the thinking part of us has kind of two aspects to it, right? A narrow focus aspect and a kind of broad focus aspect. And the basic idea is that people who tend to have a kind of mechanical way of thinking kind of get focused on that narrow part of thinking too much and kind of get themselves wrapped up inside it. And it causes the kind of problems that you and I have looked at, especially with things like philosophy, where people get into that thing that you've called, 2D thinking, right?
Yeah.
Or binary thinking.
Yeah.
And they can't see the big picture. They can't connect things together. And yeah,
I,
go on.
I'm sort of struggling a little bit with your representational maybe framework of this. Is would be a better thing, because I get what you're trying to say, but in essence, all human beings do that. The way the brain works is it categorizes things into like neat little boxes. So, like when you're a kid and you're in elementary school and they say, oh, atoms are these tiny little balls that make up everything. And then you get to high school and it's like, well, actually, there's electrons around them and protons and neutrons inside them and little balls. And then you get to like university and they're like, well, actually, it's kind of a cloud of charge that we don't really know what it looks like. And
Yeah.
so initially you're like, oh, atoms, great. Then you get to high school and you're like, they lied to me, bastards. Life's a lot more complicated than I thought. Then you get to college and it's like again, So the wisest thing that you can do, instead of thinking, and I'm loath to say this out loud because then people will misunderstand it and they'll go like, everyone has their own truth. And that's when I just want to take a stick and beat them about the face to tell them that no, sticks are real for you just like they are for everybody else. But so the wisest thing that you can do with how you see reality and use your brain and all that is to assume that you don't really know the whole story. Because it's not wrong to think that. It's, the whole, we all see through a glass darkly. But at the same time, what's true is true. Like 2 and 2 is 4 and sticks to your face hurt, So you've got to have that balance. But interestingly enough, I was watching an interview with a guy that did the biography of Elon Musk, and he was talking about how Elon Musk thinks and how he does things and whatever. And one of the things that I recognize, because Elon has got Asperger's or autism like us or whatever, is the fact that the way he thinks about stuff is like goes back to first principles of physics. And I didn't, I never had that expression said to me. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, actually, that is what I do. Because, and it happens with it. I mean, you've seen it on the farm here. You've seen it, like when people say, oh, well, we need to do this way. And I'm like, well, why? We don't need to do it that way. We can do it this way because, that's how things work. I've got a chainsaw. There's a tree. Cut it down. It's like, no, but you need to like. No, I don't. And it's done. And so if you go back to like sort of first principles and don't take for granted the way that you've been taught to do something. The really amazing thing is if you go to a little kid, like I do this with my kids. When I'm thinking, oh yeah, maybe I'm teaching them how to do something, but sometimes I'm also saying, well, this is how I do it. Now, you show me a better way. And sometimes they'll come up with something that is better because they don't have any preconceived ideas and their own little brain is just going to and figure something out.
I'm going to do a cheeky plug now because I never do that.
Yeah, good.
Marketing. Yeah. I've recently developed a website called hometrivium.com.
Oh,
this
yes.
is actually a shout out to anyone who is homeschooling.
Do you want to put the link in the chat if you can?
I'll see if I can. Yeah. So hometrivium.com. And sorry, I'll just go on to this for a minute or two because it's something that's actually been really effective so
Oh,
far.
this
So the
says,
idea of
hold on, it came up in the interview chat. Let me just copy it and bang it
yeah,
into the main chat here. So the trivium. Do you want to just explain what the trivium is quickly, because that is
I'll try and be
that's
concise about this because
yeah,
obviously it's a big topic. But
yeah,
basically, it's the classical approach to learning in the language arts and what you would generally now consider as the humanities. And so it was basically the approach to learning, which was actually much more free form than how we currently
yeah.
think of it, that was used throughout the classical era and through the height of Catholicism.
Yeah, but
And so,
it's just to be clear, it's not just about the humanity. You can learn anything with this. You can learn how to do
exactly,
woodwork with it. Yeah,
yeah. Well, if you use the entire classical liberal arts, so if you combine it with a quadrivium,
yeah,
especially, that you can. But the approach generally, yeah, is it can be applied to anything, but it does specialize in the language and the communicative arts. And basically, it's really, if you're teaching it to kids,
yeah,
it's for clear communication and critical thinking,
yeah.
and a combination of those two things.
The
So
the
it
thing.
combines the go on.
No, no, sorry. Go. I didn't mean to
It
interrupt.
combines the three classical arts of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Okay,
Yeah,
as any of you might have seen, I've done a course on this whole idea on Kogan TV.
yeah,
But I've since read more and learned more about the trivium, and I was starting to work with some homeschooling families in the UK
yeah,
who wanted me to help their children to develop these skills. Now, because I can't just be everywhere at every time, and also I don't really want to micromanage the learning of children. We
no, yeah,
came up with quite a creative solution. What we did instead, or what I've done, is I've basically created a large series of assignments, and each
yeah,
one of those assignments will train or force the children to deal or use one of these skills or a mixture of them. So it's everything from explaining why the truth is of value to convincing me that something is true to writing a story or explaining character motives.
yeah,
Yeah, trying to make something boring into something interesting. It's all of these different activities that the families can then take and the kids can approach at their own pace, in their own way,
yeah,
and whatever works for them, they can therefore find out their own approach and how to do it. And then what I offer upon that is just professional guidance.
yeah,
So if you're on the website and you're a subscriber, you can reach out to me at any time if you ever get stuck, if you don't understand a concept, if you don't
yeah,
understand an idea, I'll give you feedback. I'll give you advice, sorry. And then I also give feedback to all the work the children do. The other things I mentioned, that's a unique point about this, is that it's actually physical. This is all analog.
yeah,
None of this has to be done online.
yeah,
So
yeah,
what I do is I've created this series of assignments, and they are delivered to you to collect, right? So
yeah.
you actually have these physical assignments that you work on at home, and the kids can do everything analog. And then if you send pictures of what the kids do, send them back to the website,
Yeah.
and then you can get feedback and tell them how to improve and that kind of thing.
Sounds pretty awesome, especially for homeschooling, which I think is going to be it's growing. It's a completely much bigger thing than it was. And the trivium is a
It's
way of
definitely the way to
thinking.
go, and it's a way to go on.
Well, that's what I was saying.
Yeah,
The whole thing about it's kind of weird. I was seeing so many parallels between this guy's basically lived with Elon Musk for like 2 years to just follow him around and just see what the guy does and sit in meetings and do everything that he does. And there was quite a lot of parallels about the fact that he was in South Africa. The way kids are raised in South Africa. He talks about how Elon is setting up like solar panels in his house at like 2 in the morning, and his like 3-year-old kid is just playing around in the cables. With you've seen me with my kids, and it's kids like they were having a party and there's a fire pit, and the kids like throwing stuff like in the fire pit, and the biographer is sort of like, dude, your kids like and you're like, when I was a kid they told me don't play with matches, so I stole a box of matches and I was lighting it up behind the tree all the time, so I don't want my kid to go through that. Let him see what the fire is. If he gets burnt, it'll only happen
yeah,
once. And that's how I am with my kids as well. It's like when he when he got his cut on his head, and like he tripped and he cut open his eyebrow, and his mother like lost her shit. Like, you have to take him to the. I'm like, wait,
yeah.
why hospital? I got the little sticker stitches, and she's like, fucking. I'm like, okay, fuck it, I'll take him to the hospital. Just just to get her to keep quiet. 13 hours in the fucking hospital here because, all the guys getting heart attacks were going in first, and like he's just got a cut in his head. And eventually they sent me to another hospital. Going there, what did they put in his eyebrow? The same shitty little stickers that I got at home. So it's like, was a waste of fucking 13 hours, But it was awesome because I got this. He was so good. He was such a good little dude. And well, you've seen him how he is. He gets like a big thorn in his hand. He's like, "Oh, Daddy, take it out, please." And that way of learning is so important because, like, I've always said this at work, in my professional work, when I wasn't pretending trying to be a farmer and failing, and I could do everything that I needed to do at work on average. There was days that I was like 10 hours and I start in the morning and I don't let go, no breaks, nothing, and I'm doing 10 solid hours. But on average, everything that I needed to do in my work day to be efficient and to make more money than they ever put targets for me at, and I did, on every job I ever had, I've made more money than they've ever told me to do. That it's about 4 hours. It's about 4.5 hours of efficient work. That's it. So I'm thinking, why the fuck are we sending kids to school for like 6, 7, 8 hours? That's just retarded. And plus they have to sit there in a chair, and And it's
Absolutely.
like the little Viking is starting to learn to write and stuff. And he's so, it's like, man, I sometimes I feel sorry for him because he's got my genetics in there. But he was trying to do an S and he was getting it wrong. And he was so pissed off with himself. He'd like try and throw the pen. I'm like, dude, relax. You've got to get, it's okay to be angry. And he was like, his mother was like trying to say, no, don't get upset. And I'm like, no. Stop talking to him. Son, look at me. It's okay to be angry. Get angry. You're pissed off because you can't do it right. It's fine. Be angry. But you don't give up. You pick up that anger, you pick up that pen, and you do it until you get it right. And he was like, like tears. Okay, Daddy. Grabs the pen, and he stayed there for like an hour. And guess what? He filled in a page of like S's. By the 10 minutes later, he'd done a whole page of S's. And I was like, that's what you want to. If you had just done the standard, if you picked up a parenting guide to teaching your child how to write, it's like, boom.
Yeah.
So you need to like bounce things around in your own. I've done that with myself. My whole life I've been doing that, and that's why that's well, as you know, milk of human kindness flows through my veins, and whenever I see a person that doesn't quite mentally catch up to me, I'm so patient with them. Yeah, it's like why I think most people are retarded.
You're a gentle rose. You've ever met one.
There you go. And it's because I'm thinking, why are you so dumb to like just believe what you've been. I had this in chemistry class. I couldn't believe it. Like, chemistry teacher was a cool dude, but in order to do figuring out molar equations or whatever, he was doing basic maths. That it's just a percentage. He was doing it in 7 steps, and I'm like, why? You just do it in 3. And I was like, why are we doing it that way? We know it's a percentage. It's like, you've got the fraction, you multiply by this, and that's your percentage. It's like, and he looked at me. He like looked at what I was doing. I was like, but I'm not sure that works every time. I swear to God, I looked at him like, is this guy retarded? Like, what the hell? I'm like, what do you mean you're not sure if it works every time? It's math. It's like,
it has to work every time. Yeah.
That's how it works, I'm like, well, I can't follow what you're doing, but I tell you what, the thing is, I can give you marks for working out, and the other ones, even if you get the question wrong. But this way, I don't know how to do. I'm like, okay, doesn't matter. So if I get it right, you give me full marks. If I get it wrong, you give me 0. Is that okay? And he goes, yeah, we could do it that way. I aced that class. I came first, because I was like, oh, fuck it. I couldn't understand why these people were doing 7 steps when you needed 3. And so much in life is like that. It's so many things. Like any work that you do, any job that you do. The first thing I do when I arrive in a new company was like, okay, what you want me to do? Okay, you want me to do this. How do you guys do it? And the first thing I do is look for all the flaws and all the inefficiencies and all the shitty things. And then, if I could, depending on the person, I'd ask questions. I'd be like, why are you doing it that way? Why don't you do it this way? What's the problem with doing it this way? 8 times out of 10, they'd go like, Uh, oh, oh, just didn't think about that. 8 times out of 10. Occasionally, there'd be 1 times out of 10 a guy that goes, nope, we've tried that, and this is what happens. Then you run into this other problem, and then I'd be looking at that problem. But
Yeah.
the thing is, very often there's a second or a third step that they were being inefficient, and I just cut that out, and that's why I could do my job the way I did. So that was one thing.
Nice.
And then the 1 times out of 10 is a guy that says, no, 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 we have to do it that way. Why? Oh, it's just the way it's done.
Yeah.
It's less efficient, it doesn't work, and it's just stupid. Like, no, that's how we do it here. Oh, okay. So as long as you pay me, fuck it, I'll just, play Cluedo or something on my phone for the next 6 hours because I've done it my way and it works. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is the terrible thing about school. I mean, in this whole topic of mechanizing the mind, like that is what
Yeah.
modern schools do.
Yes.
And we've found that with the Trivium Kids so far. It's only been running for about a month or
Yeah.
two. But some of the assignments they come up with, because I'm very careful not to like micromanage the parents at all.
Yeah.
It's just, here's the assignment, here's the outcome I want you to achieve.
Yeah.
How do you achieve that outcome? I don't care.
Yeah.
Really. If you really want to ask me a question, I'll give you advice or whatever, but just do it in your own way,
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that kids come up with is absolutely fantastic.
It is.
And it's also way beyond what they are expecting their level to be as well. Because,
Yes.
a lot of this stuff with logic and language and that kind of stuff, they intuitively already have the gears there to do it. They've already got the equipment.
It's
and
not
they
just
haven't
that.
been they haven't been retarded yet by school.
No, there's actually there's work that's been done on this. And I'm terrible with names. I can't remember the name of the lady, but there's this like very sort of expensive school where kids go, and they like all the kids that go through there come out. They speak like 4 languages. They can do calculus by age 10. Like kind of little freaks. And I spoke to this guy who was writing a book about learning, and he went to sit. He asked he got permission to basically sit in on the classrooms and just watch how they got taught. And there was this lady that'd been doing it. She was like in her 60s already. She'd been a teacher there for a long time. And he went up to her and he says, "So where do you find all these gifted kids?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, they're all like speaking 4 languages." And he goes, "Yeah, they're just normal kids." And he goes, but most kids don't speak. He says, "Yeah, because you don't ask it of them. The only difference in this school is that the parents pay us a crap load of money. And so we teach them as though they can. And when a kid comes up and says, 'Oh, but I don't know.' Yes, you can. Well, of course you can. Johnny can. He speaks 4 languages, and of course you can learn French. And why couldn't you?" And it's absolutely true. Like one of the worst things you can do to your kid is like, and I can see this in my own kids. Like my daughter wasn't really raised by me until recently. My stepdaughter, there was issues there and whatever. But I'm not doing that with our kids, because I'm like, no, and sometimes, and which is a woman's role, right? The woman is the soft thing and the man is the hard thing, and it's okay. Like my wife sometimes will get in the middle of saying, "No, but I'm going to explain," and I'm like, "Don't explain jack shit." He or she, they know what they've done. They know if it's right or wrong. You don't have to explain a damn thing. They're not retarded. They absolutely know what they've done. And now if you're teaching them something and you're going to spend 10 minutes talking to them on how to do something that takes 10 seconds, that's wrong. You don't say that. You just say, "Look, this is how you do it." Or just show him. You just do it and you say, "Okay, you did it like I did it. Try and do the same."
By the way, your microphone's rubbing against your zip, I think.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Hopefully that's better.
That is better, yeah. No,
Yeah.
anyway.
So, and you're absolutely right. What happens, it's not just with school. There's such a big topic on how they've mechanized your brain, Like,
Yeah.
here's a thought, we're talking about, mechanizing of the brain. Well, here's a thought. Who the hell thinks that it's normal for you to get up at 7:30 in the morning, get dressed, put on a tie, go sit in some other guy's office and work on a computer for like 8-9 hours, and then go home and eat your dinner and watch Netflix and go to bed and do the hell same thing again 5 days?
Absolutely.
And that's normal? That's fucking hell.
Yeah, before we get into that, can I just try? Because I know at the beginning you said that you weren't really sure about how I'm framing all of this.
Yeah.
So can I just spend a little couple
Yeah.
more
Sorry.
minutes explaining
As usual.
what
Yeah.
exactly I mean by mechanizing the brain?
Yeah.
Um, because the narrow thinking part was only one aspect, and what I should actually emphasize is that it's not about doing one or the other; it's about them being unbalanced, right? So we've got two forms of thinking that we can employ, like step by step thinking and kind of broad automatic thinking. Then they're obviously both working simultaneously to some extent, right?
Yeah.
But people do have a tendency of focusing on one more than the other, and namely the tendency is to focus on the step by step thinking more than the broad focus thinking.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's the first part of it.
I mean,
And
you're
so you
presenting a
say,
model. What you're saying is a very
yeah,
stylized model, which is I've
yeah.
got a bit of a problem with because it's a very simplified
I
version.
know
But
it's
yeah,
a
okay.
loose. I know it's a simplified version, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's helped me at least to get to this far in my thinking and to
Hmm.
actually. I'm like this model because, as you say, if the model works, use it. And as I have
Yeah,
used it, I have stopped myself being quite as mechanical.
yeah,
So that's the first aspect to it is that habit of step by step mechanical thinking. And the second part of it is actually the way that the mind pays attention, right? Which I know are both kind of related. But as you know, when we're paying attention to the world and we're experiencing things, there's like the thing that we're focusing on, and then there's all the other information we can take in.
yeah,
And as you know, and you've written about, I think in your Systema work, there is a way to kind of make that as effective as possible and make those two things work in harmony as much as possible. But for
yeah,
most people, they're not in harmony. For most people, the broad attention is kind of narrowed, and they kind of have this kind of tunnel vision in a sense,
yeah.
right? And that's why people get into like mental loops in their head, and they keep thinking about the same thing over and over again, and that kind of
Just
thing.
one slight
So,
correction. In order to get
sure.
that more efficient, what you're actually doing is you're letting your what you call the broad spectrum thing, which is I think a better way of presenting it is like from the Systema stuff is you've got a sympathetic nervous system and the like parasympathetic nervous system. You know, one is like a focused thinking, like where you I'm gonna pick up a cup, and that's a physical, mental, conscious decision. And then you've got the autonomous system, which is what runs your breathing, your heart, and all
Yeah.
that. And basically, what you're in Systema, what you're doing is you're allowing your autonomous system to react to
Yeah.
aggression in this case, or
Yeah.
attacks or movements. So the way to do that is to let your autonomous system do that more. However, there's a problem in that because when you're talking about martial arts, you're limiting, although it's an infinite number of movements and an infinite number of situations, you're still limiting to a particular set of things.
Mm.
If you're going to let your autonomous system take over in a skill, generally that happens over a long period of time. So if, like, for example, in my work when I was doing spreadsheets, automatically once I see like the money flowing or whatever the building situation is, I can automatically sort of pick up on where the flaws are,
Yeah.
the inefficiencies. But if you're doing that as a general thing for life, it can be done. I've done it without knowing that I was doing it essentially until much later. But it's a conscious effort to tell yourself that you're doing what I was saying before. You're looking for the difference. You're looking for another way to do it.
Well, it's not even so much looking for it as it is allowing yourself to see it.
Yeah,
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 because it's a
yeah.
loosening up actually. So let me a couple other thoughts that come to mind.
Mm,
When we talk about this more mechanical way of thinking and paying attention, it's obviously one of the most relevant things is human interactions, not necessarily just martial arts, but just vibing with people,
yeah.
right? Having social interactions. Now, autistic people, right,
Mm,
have this tendency of kind of micromanaging interactions, right? So it's like, oh, their eyes are bright, but they're also smiling. And then I'm looking at their cheeks, I'm looking at their nose, right? And they're jumping around.
yeah,
Whereas with a broad focus or just a natural person, it's like, no, you just see the whole face at once. There's Giuseppe being Giuseppe, right?
yeah.
Um, and so it's that kind of ability for your mind to take a step back and just see the big picture. Now, interestingly, I actually did this as an exercise recently. I've noticed this same tendency in my own thinking and my way of paying attention. And one of the things I do, as an example, I mean, I've done a bunch of different things, but I've got a river. I actually live on the River Somme at the moment.
Hmm.
Like it's about 10 meters away from my house. So I walk along the Somme, and yeah, a nice bit of history there. And there's a bit where it goes into basically like the river flows down into a lake.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of like rapid where all the waves and the water and everything is breaking into itself. And as crazy as it's going to sound, and I probably look like a psychopath when I do it, my exercise is I stand there and I literally just stare at the water, right? But what I'm actually doing is I'm not trying to look at any one particular thing, because obviously it's all rapids and bubbles and ripples and everything all moving. But I just try to see the entire thing at once. And what I've noticed is that for me to do that, and I can do it now, and it's becoming more and more easy. I just have to kind of, it's almost like a breathing out for my
Yeah.
brain, for my mind, and I just see the whole thing at once. And I've noticed if I do that regularly, I am, loosening up my mind. And I've found with that, for example, I'm kind of getting a sense of myself more. And things like human interactions are becoming easier. It's
Yeah.
not like I was always a complete robot. I'm not that bad. But, just generally trusting my own emotions and just relaxing
Yeah.
into situations is becoming easier and that kind of thing. So maybe that gives you a better idea of what I mean by this kind of thing.
Yes, but well, it actually leads into a very interesting topic because you've explained it very well, and the common factor in there is fear.
That is an element, yeah.
If you think about it, like what is preventing you, when you're saying, oh, I'm forcing myself to look at the whole thing of the picture, all that is relaxing your brain. That's
Yes.
you're
Yes.
physically training yourself to relax your brain. That's it. Which kids naturally have, before you screw them up, if they don't have like a autistic from birth or whatever, like we were, I suppose. But kids will do that naturally. Their brain is relaxed, and it's like, oh, the cat just got run over by a car. That's interesting. They're not like freaked out because
No.
it's
And
just
that's why they're
another
so
event.
natural as humans as well, right?
Yeah.
They're so natural.
So that's all that is, and the reason that you generally as an adult are not relaxed brain is because something's happened and you've got expectations. You've got expectations and you've got like experience that tells you that A leads to B and B leads to C and C leads to D and blah blah blah. And instead, if you allow yourself to just be open like that, the way that you can allow that to happen is by not being afraid of consequences, of the future, of anxiety of what's going to happen if I don't get this right, all of that stuff. And paradoxically, again, from the Catholic perspective, I know we tend to zealously always return to the same point, but it's because it's reality.
Truth is one, isn't it? Truth is one.
Exactly. And the thing is, if like I don't think that anybody that knows me can say I've ever been a fearful person. But my internal state in terms of how I face stuff is completely different now, like with such a absolute belief in like, God, Catholicism, call it what you want, doesn't really matter. Before, my belief was like, I can do this. So I wasn't stressed about, I wasn't anxious, I wasn't like, but everything was like, oh, okay, I can do this. Now I just put some oomph into it. Now it's like, yeah, I can do this. And I can do it or let it go or care about it or not care about it. It's a lot more fluid because the level of existence, I never had like a fear. So like, oh, something's going to happen to me. That's not me. It's not how I think. But on an intrinsic level, my body or whatever was my brain was like thinking, I have to work to do this. I have to like put energy into doing this.
Yeah.
Now it's like, yeah, it'll come to me. And funnily enough, writing the book, finishing the book now, which I did in like record time. I set myself like 5,000 words a day, and then I didn't even realize I did like over 10,000 a day. So it's like I finished the thing. And I had to do a lot of reading of the previous books because there's a complicated plot and whatever. And as I was reading the previous books, I'm like, man, this is actually really good. I don't know if I can keep up. And it's like, by the end of it, now that I've finished, it's like, yeah, no, I'm there. And there was a tiny moment where I just thought, ooh, yeah, now I'm remembering it. No, I've kept notes and stuff, so the plot lines are pretty complicated. But instead of like obsessing about it and thinking, oh, did I remember this, that, I just like, no, I just let me just start writing, and then it all just came back. It just naturally like, oh yeah, there's this, and oh, there's that bit, and oh, there's that bit, and it just sort of flowed, which wouldn't have happened to me 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I would have like, it would have been hell finishing this book, and I wouldn't have been able to do it in this quickly because it would have been like, no, but there's this thing, and oh, and how does that work? And I'd go back and check it, and try and make it work by brute force or whatever. Well, now it's like, because I'm relaxed, even other new concepts and new bits that I not only did I follow the original plots, but I continued with the new stuff, because that's what happens with my characters. I build them up really well, and then they've got their own little brains, and they start doing shit. And I'm like, you're going off plot. What are you doing? You're my character in my book. Get back online. But
But that's the thing, isn't it? Like when you let your mind relax like that, it's
yeah,
almost like you open the net, and it can just catch more. It can catch infinitely more than you
exactly.
can catch by just grabbing it with your hand, one piece at a time.
And
And
that's
yeah,
where discipline comes into it, because
yeah,
let's say you do get that, and some people maybe are naturally like that. Then the problem becomes in like what you pick. It's like when I first went to the United States, the first time I went to the States, and I thought, oh, I just want to go to the supermarket and grab myself a packet of crisps. And I walked in, and they had 4 aisles about 50 meters long,
that's
four
so
different
funny.
aisles of just crisps. And I like,
Yeah,
coming from South Africa, or Botswana, wherever I was at the time, I just walked in, I looked at this wall of like different, and I walked out without buying one, because I just thought,
yeah,
these people are fucking crazy. What the hell? There's like 5 flavors. They've got like 50,000 flavors. Like, what? And that's the problem. When you've got so much choice and there's so much, then the problem becomes what you pick. And then the next problem becomes, how do you pick the best one of the bunch? Because how do you evaluate it? So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
quite a process, which
Do you
I
know what it
think
reminds
takes
me of?
time.
It's always reminded me of, analogously, the process by which quantum behavior, by which quantum photons go from one place to another. Yeah. Because in the classic model, the way that a bullet gets from A to B is there's one path, A, B, and
Yeah.
it goes straight there. But what a photon does is it basically, from my very, very basic understanding of physics, is it basically goes through every single possibility simultaneously, finds the most likely one, and then takes that path.
Well, I've got my theory on it, but the reality is that actually no one knows what a photon is and how it does what it does. They really are just blind men with
Or,
hammers trying to
or
describe.
even if we take the quantum computing example, in classical computing, it's like the computers go through equation, one at a time. They can do it super fast now, but it's still in a linear fashion.
Yeah.
Whereas with quantum computing, it's like we're going to do all the equations simultaneously,
Yeah.
and then we're just going to pick the most likely one to succeed, and it's instant,
Yeah.
right? That's the idea.
Well, the thing
Um,
about the quantum stuff is, reality has got nothing to do. That's why I recently sort of promoted, I guess, Rupert Sheldrake. Slightly off topic, but no, it's a loop, but I'll come back to it.
I watched that
Because,
recently. That was quite a good little presentation he does on. It was good,
yeah,
wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah. He did another private one at a thing where he's talking about the speed of light and how that changed over time and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah, I
that.
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, some guy wrote to me a long email, which I said I'm gonna get back to him, and I'll update it when I eventually do. He was saying, oh, but Rupert Sheldrake is like a CIA plant, and he tells people to like do drugs, and I was like, look, Rupert Sheldrake does not strike me as an intelligence agent. I've been sort of following his work for almost 30 years in one fashion or another. I don't, it's not like I'm stalking the guy or anything, but I sort of keep up with what he does. I just don't think he's constitutionally that way inclined. Um, he may well have, he may well know people in that intelligence community, but that's just because of kind of who he is and what he does, that he will attract that sort of attention. I mean, shit, I've attracted that sort of attention. But my father has attracted that sort of attention. And it's like, I'm not involved with these fucking people, but I get the old creepy email, and, they're odd, like, oh, they're checking my phones. And I know that they check them because
Yeah.
I had a guy in the national fucking security force. Like, I said, look, somebody's wiretapping my phones. Can you check who the fuck it is? And he was actually one of the head guys. And he was like, yeah, you're right. Somebody is tapping your phones. We've proved it, and he showed me the things, but it's not us. I don't know who it is. I don't actually know who it is, which is worrying me, because I'm like the number two in the fucking intelligence agency of like South Africa, and it's like, I don't know who the fuck's tapping your phone. And I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. So it's like, but yeah, so you get that sort of thing. But the thing about Rutger Sheldrake is talks about how the speed of light, which is supposed to be a constant, doesn't change. Well, the thing is, in my The Face on Mars book, which I wrote in '95, in 1992, they transmitted Mozart's 40th Symphony at 4.7 times the speed of light by using quantum tunneling. Now, when I explain to you what quantum tunneling is, you're going to be like, what? That sounds fucking insane. This is what quantum tunneling is. Think of a tennis ball being thrown at a wall. How many times does it bounce back?
Just to let you know, I did once have a friend of mine who was a nuclear physicist explain this to me while we were both high on MDMA.
So you know what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, good. But maybe
I knew
just
it really well, but then I might have completely forgotten it afterwards. That can also
well, if you think of a tennis ball being thrown at a wall, how many times does it bounce back? Always, right?
yeah.
Well, that's not how
Yeah.
electrons slash photons, quarks, or whatever the fuck it is, because no one really knows. When you throw that at a wall, it almost all bounces back, but one or two kind of go through. So what they do, and it goes through instantly. So what they do is they say, oh well, if it goes through one wall instantly, what if we put a bunch of walls? And we make it like a little tunnel that's all wavy and stuff, and then we shoot some fucking information down there, and hey, some of it gets to the other side instantly, or close enough that it's only traveling. It bounces through this wall, goes through there, and then bounces through the next. So they transmitted Mozart's 40th Symphony at 4.7 times the speed of light. So the light barrier has been broken already. And that's just, people say, oh, it's just information. Well, it's coherent information.
Yeah, it's all stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, and basically what that means, the way I understand it, is like, well, you've got wormholes that, you need all this massive energy to create a wormhole. You need to convert the whole mass of Jupiter to like raw energy on the E equals mc squared thing to get a wormhole that's a meter in diameter. Well, okay, great. So you're telling me we can't have spaceships that have wormholes? Oh, well, you can, because there's enough energy to boil off all the oceans of planet Earth on a cubic meter of empty space. So if you get access to that with the anti-gravity machines, you can create the wormholes and all that. But the thing is, we already have wormholes. That's what quantum tunneling is. And that's what our DNA does, by the way, with information. That's why we can get...
we spoke about that a little bit last time. Yeah.
So the quantum tunneling thing is absolutely insane, right? It's like, wait, what? A particle just instantly goes from A to B, like, and how's it doing that? So, when they talk about the superposition of the quantum wave, and it's like, Schrodinger's cat, it's both alive and dead until you open the box, and then whatever that wave collapses, so that reality is the one that you see, and that's where they theorize there's all the other like potential universes around. I don't think that's like how it works. I think it's the ether thing is there, which I told you was going to be a long loop. I'm coming back to it. So the whole concept of the ether, which is real, and Harold Aston, who wrote a bunch of books, and you've got the free website which our buddy did for us, haroldaston.org, I think it's called. And all of his books are on there for free, because his wife, after he died, like she asked me, oh look, can you make his books available? And then she left me a little bit of money when she passed. And so as a matter of honor and respect, I'm gonna, as long as I'm alive, I'm gonna try and keep that. And our friend, I'm not gonna say his name because I don't know if he wants me to say his name or whatever, but one of the Crusader dudes, he's put that up on his own, off his own back. But basically, essentially, as far as I'm concerned, Harold Aston proved that ether is a thing. And if the ether is a thing, going back to the human mind, there's also this concept that the human mind is hologramic. In other words, what they call akashic records and past lives, and whether you're into that or not, whether it goes against the Catholic thing or whatever. Psychometry, telepathy is a thing. It's proven. Michael Persinger's done a lot of work on that basically proves it exists, and even explains how it works. So it's quite interesting. But all of this stuff is because we're a little piece of a hologram within a hologram, so we can get access to all this information. And that is why I also think our brain works that way. So, once you've been exposed to enough information, I think you can process that information in an almost infinite number of ways. And that's where you get the proof of this to me are idiot savants. Those people that can do the square root of like 10-digit numbers in their head in like instantly. That could not be possible unless we are somehow enmeshed with the whole of reality. On some level, our brain can, or our mind.
Logos, isn't it, really?
Exactly. So the thing is, these guys are born with some odd wiring in their head that allows them to do that just naturally. But the thing is, that potential is in there somehow. It might not be available to you unless you get that special little weird wiring. But if that reality is available on some level, in some ways, it must mean that it is there on some aspect of it. It must be there. Otherwise, it couldn't function that way. Which means we are connected to everything. Which means if you train yourself to see everything and then to be selective in what you pick out from what you process. Keep in mind that our human brain unconsciously works up like billions of stuff a second. Consciously like 10 to 12, unconsciously.
One little analogy that comes to mind is if you imagine like a bubble in the ocean, right? And if the ocean is truth,
yes,
then when you're doing like the narrow mind thinking, it's almost like you're covering that little bubble in oil, right?
Yeah.
And so it's becoming isolated from the body of water around it.
Yeah.
But if you cover it in fear, that oil is fear, right? But if you take the fear off and you allow the bubble to open up, then you can swim in the sea of truth.
We've got a couple of questions here. Sorry. Where are we? Willie Ram says, this dispersed. You got a super chat. Thank you, Cordell. Oh, just guys, Christmas is coming up, and I told you that I'm keeping it right here. Some small children in Italy do not have a 1911. Just remember that. And Cordell just added in $50. Thank you, sir. It's going right in here. There are small Italian children that have never held a 1911 45 caliber. So that's the appeal for the children. So Woolly Ram says, this dispersed attention sounds like what gets diagnosed as ADD nowadays and medicated with amphetamines. Yeah, I think ADD is a mixture of different things for different people. One of my stepdaughter sometimes, whatever, it doesn't matter who. There are people that are affected by this in different ways and for different reasons. One of the reasons is that potentially it could be that, it could be you've got so much stuff going on in your head and you're not getting rid of it fast enough. So like your in funnel is bigger than your out funnel for whatever reason. And I still don't think medication is the answer, by the way. I think the answer is put that kid running around in a gym, climbing the walls, in a forest, running around. Okay, you have to run to this, do this circuit, and then do a painting for like 2 minutes, and then run the circuit, and then do a maths problem for 5 seconds. And the thing is, kids like that are like that. If you give them that experience, they're awesome. They do really well in that kind of environment where you give them like 5 different tasks that another kid would be like, no, but wait a minute. If I'm going to run a race, I'm going to run a race. If I want to write words, then I'm going to write words. So that allows them to process stuff the way they naturally do. Another thing that I think ADD is, it's kids that are spoiled. They're just flat out fucking spoiled because Johnny doesn't want to sit down and do his homework. So he goes, oh, but mommy, I'm hungry, or my tummy is sore, or, oh no, but I need to play with Bobby, and I have to go and see Bobby, and oh no, I'm going to cry if I can't see Bobby. And then the mother or the dad is like, oh, okay, no, darling, don't cry here. Guess what? There were no dyslexic people, and there were no people with ADD in the 1950s in school. Because if you didn't sit at your fucking desk and do what you're told, you'd get a ruler across your face or your hands or your ass. Miraculously, Attention deficit disorder didn't exist when you know, it's like in the 1950s, the ruler cured it. Amazing, you know. So that's part of it. And dyslexia is that they're teaching kids to read whole words, you know. So it's like, oh, what's this, Tony? Oh, it's a 50 euro note because it's yellow. Oh, okay, great. But you don't know how to read the number 5 or 0. You know, it's like, what the fuck? I learned to read, thank God, because they were already doing that, but because I learned to read in Nigeria with my mother, and it was like, you have to do the alphabet, A, B, and then you have to put the letters together. And now with our kids, we're doing the same. You know, we're like, nope, one letter at a time. You know, oh, but that's cat. Yeah, forget, what sound does that letter make? C, and that A, and that T, okay, and that C, and that A, and that P. Oh, that's a different word. Because they're just showing them flashcards and, oh, look how quickly the kid learns it. The kid's only learning to remember that shape. Now he's reading a book written by a German guy whose name is von Clausewitz, and he's never seen the word von Clausewitz, so he doesn't know how to pronounce the man's name. And then the man maybe uses a Zeitgeist, which is a German word which we use in English. He's never seen a flashcard for Zeitgeist, so he can't read that word now, and he doesn't know how to pronounce it, and so he skips over it, and so he doesn't understand the whole fucking page, because when you miss a word, you don't, you know. That's what dyslexia is. They're not teaching kids to read one letter at a time. That's the problem. And then syllables. You know, if you teach kids to read that, well, guess what? There's no dyslexia. I taught a kid like that. The mother was like, oh, my kid doesn't know how to do maths. He doesn't know how to do like, oh, I think, you know, he's got a shadow on his brain. The doctors told me he's got a shadow on his brain. I'm like, all right, let me teach your kid maths. First of all, nobody had understood how this kid processed information. And once I said, all I had to do was ask him. Like, okay, how do you do like 2 times 8? How do you do it? What's happening in your head? Tell me what's going on in your head. And then he told me, and he's like, well, it's like 2, and then I add another 2, and then I add another 2, and then I add another 2. I said, okay, that works, but now what if you have a big number, you know, like 185 times 26, how do you do that? And he's like, oh, well, okay, so I showed him, you know, like the way I got taught at school, you know, you write it down, and you do this, and you put this number times that number, blah, blah, blah. I think it was a total of maybe half an hour. And after that, he could do long multiplication, which he could never do before that. Like, and his mother's like, oh, you're miraculous. I was like, no, I'm not special, I'm not a genius, and your kid's not a retard. No one explained it to him. No one bothered to find out what's going on in his head. And he's doing it in a slightly different way from what, you know, the robots are being told.
Yeah.
You know, that's all that you need to do. It's like, and look, you know, I was talking with my friend today about like figuring out how to make those weird batteries that work and produce energy out of nowhere. Like, because I came across this thing where Tesla built a car, or rather bought a car with an engine, took the engine out, put one of his little thingamajobs under the dashboard with an antenna, and it was driving around, going 90 miles an hour. No problem. And people are like, but Mr. Tesla, there's nothing coming out of your exhaust. And he goes, well, of course not. I don't have an engine. And I'm like, he was doing that in the like 1800s? Like, what the fuck? What, you know, what? Or early 1900s, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that I have to be hooked up to the grid to like switch on my computer? No, there's got to be a way around that shit. So, and we were talking like that. And the thing is, Victor Schauberger, Nikola Tesla, all these guys. Do you think these guys went to a school that sat them down and said, so this is the electron, and this is the volt, and this is the ampere, and this is how electricity works? No. Every single one of these guys figured that stuff out by doing what? Sitting down and looking at nature. That's what they did. Just, how does that work? Well, let me just observe. Let me just look.
Someone else pointed out something. Yeah. Someone I was listening to recently pointed out something similar with Aristotle, for example. Like, Aristotle wouldn't have just sat there and said, like, well, this is the argument and this is the thing. It's like, no, he had the tools at hand that he could use.
Yeah.
Looked at the universe, thought about it, and went, oh, this is the situation.
Yeah.
You know, you could have said that for any of the kind of old great philosophers.
Actually,
yeah, none of them went to school.
No.
Not in the way we think of it.
No. It's actually a very cool thing. Just remind me, like, OK says, like unlocking a new character, it's always there, but you have to access it first. Sounds like learning language through Duolingo. See, Duolingo doesn't work for me. The way I learn language is like just throw myself in and speak it, and that's how I learned Portuguese in 2 weeks, basically, because I had to.
Yeah.
And if I
Yeah.
go to
I do
Russia,
that too.
I'll bet you right now, if you drop me like in my underpants in Russia, if I don't die from the cold, within 3 weeks, I'll be speaking Russian. It won't be great, it won't be perfect, but I'll make myself understood. But what you've just reminded me of, okay, like, unlocking a new character, it's always there, but you have to access it. I just did a hypnosis session with a guy who had a bit of an issue of, I'm not going to say his name or anything, but like with intimacy and like connecting to people and that sort of thing and caring about people. And it's like, as I was talking to him, I was interviewing him to like, just figure out from his reactions, like what the issue is. And then I clocked it. I was like, oh, it's so simple. And I said to him, look, okay, we can do the hypnosis session now. And he goes, oh, but we only have like 30, 45 minutes left. Or I was like, yeah, don't worry. I won't even need the whole half hour. I know what the issue is. And he's like, well, but, and he has the kind of brain a bit like yours, where it's very useful to tell him, because then he will action it, Some people, it's like if you tell them, they'll just get more confused. And so I told him, look, your problem is that you think you're lazy. That's your problem. That's why you don't call up your friend. That's maybe why you don't speak to your whatever. You don't get engaged with the people the way you want to, because you think, oh, it's an effort, and you've told yourself and you've come up with this belief in your own head that you're lazy. You're not lazy. That's not who you are. I can tell you that right now. And then I asked him, like, now tell me something that you're good at. Tell me one thing that you rock, that you really enjoy doing, that is fun, that you. And he was, he's a bit shy. He was like, oh, it's going to sound so stupid, Like, dude, don't worry about it. It's just you and me. Like, I'm never going to tell people who you are or what your issue is or whatever. So, well, I really enjoy making really complicated spreadsheets, which made me laugh because I did that as my work for many years. Like, I know you're feeling, buddy. Okay, good. And we did the session, and I just connected the two things in his head. When he came out, it was like, he was a different man. Honestly, it was like 30 minutes and he was a different guy. He came out of it and he was like, oh, that felt great. I just felt like all this like weight off my body just falling off me. Like, I'm not the guy, like I was trapped into like being this person. I'm not that person anymore. And he was like completely changed, and that's all it took. It was just like unlocking that belief that he had about himself. And that's the problem. We get stuck with a belief. Your belief is bullshit. 90% of your beliefs are not even yours to begin with. At least 90. If you're lucky, 90. If you're a clever guy that's like worked on himself, it's 90. Because for most people, it's 99%. All the things that you believe are really important shit that comes from your great grandfather that got got kicked by a mule when he was like, in the 1700s, and since then donkeys are bad, stupid things, and then you grow up believing that. so it's like when you get a donkey and you treat him bad because they're stupid. Most of your beliefs are complete nonsense, and most of your beliefs about yourself are complete nonsense, because your identity, your personality, as we said on the last thing, you can change that like you change a t-shirt. Just most people never do it, never try it, never know that you can even do that. Yeah. Sam Wettup says that is the most likely explanation of dyslexia that I've ever heard. No, I'm absolutely, I know I'm correct about that. There's no doubt about it. Because I corrected that in my long time ago, a girlfriend that I had who had that problem, because she said, oh, I'm not a good reader, I don't know. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're intelligent, you're smart. And I saw like she'd get, I said, let's do it together. And then I taught her to like just read one letter at a time, like with a little kid. Now, because she was an adult already, that didn't take long, because she was like, oh, okay. And then after that, she was like, for about a month, she was sort of like reading books in a different way. And then after that, she was like, oh my God, I can actually read now. I'm like, well, yeah, because nobody taught you to read properly. That was the problem. It absolutely is that. I'm absolutely convinced of it. Woolly Ram says long multiplication division by hand looks like black magic to Zoomers. Dude, it's not even Zoomers. In my engineering class, so I was, 19, 20, something like that. In my engineering class in South Africa, we got the mechanics guy, brilliant. He was a brilliant teacher because he would teach you in a very clear way the principle, and then when he gave the tests, he'd just make some problem up and say, well, there you go. And I loved that shit because I was like, oh, great, cool. I have to figure this out. Everyone in the class hated it and hated him because it's like, this was not on the exam. Like, what the fuck do you mean it wasn't an exam? He's teaching you how to do bending moments, and that's a bending moment, He's just giving you a column instead of a bridge or whatever. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be an engineer. Figure it out. And I remember in class once he addressed this because people say, oh, the way you teach, you give us tests. When you give us the test, we've never seen that before. And he was like, guys, I'm trying to train you to be engineers. You have to figure that shit out, What do you think that when you build it, what are you going to do? Just copy the last bridge that was built? What if the river's wider? You got to. And he said, look, I'm trying to teach you guys. But he says, I know your generation. You guys are like, not a single one of you even knows how to do long division by hand. And I burst out laughing because I thought he was, I thought he was taking the piss. He was like basically saying, you fucking retards, you don't even. You're so fucking lazy, you can't even do the. And I burst out laughing. He goes, why are you laughing? I'm like, come on, man. We're like second year, or whatever it was, engineering students. We all know how to do long division by hand. And he looked at me dead serious and he goes, you know how to do long division by hand? I said, well, yeah, of course I do. I knew how to do that when I was 5, like 7, whatever. My mom taught me. And he goes, I guarantee you that right now, if I ask how many people can do long division by hand, maybe 1 or 2 people lift their hands. I'm like, come on, man. He goes, no, let's ask. How many of you can do? And he wrote it on the board. He wrote like some long number, like 10,000 whatever divided by 300 and something. How do you do this without calculator? It was me and a guy that barely spoke English who was a maths genius. A big, tall, black dude from north of South Africa, whatever. Like, he spoke a language that almost no one else spoke. And it was me and him. That's it. We lifted our hand. That was it. 2 of us. And I was like, I was fucking stunned. I was like, the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, how do you live, But the thing is, weirdly enough, in Italy, my daughter at school, she knows how to do that now, and that's like, because I made sure. I was like, what are they teaching you? Let me see. It's like, Then she comes to me with grammar, and it's like, oh, Dad, I've only just learned to speak Italian like a year ago, so like, can you help me with like the past participles? I'm like, no, I can't. Google it. But you write books, Dad. Yeah, yep, that's right. I know how to use the language. That's why I don't know anything about grammar.
I actually have that. I can admit this because I know that my students aren't going to watch this channel, but I actually have that as a language teacher. So I'm there teaching English as a language, and they'll ask me like, "What's the past participle present perfect tense?" I'm like, I don't know. I'll Google it now. I'll tell you.
Yeah. That is, yeah.
But again, it's that whole principle. It's that principles versus details thing, right? That we've talked about quite a lot. It's like, what's the principle? The principle is to use the language to communicate yourself clearly to other people. And every native that you speak to can do that, and they have no idea what the perfect participle is or whatever.
No.
So as long as you can do the task of communicating, then who cares? And in fact, I've seen in my own experience that people who really get hung up on that stuff, spreadsheet wise, learn language so much more slowly than people who just throw themselves into it.
Yeah.
So much so slowly. It's unreal.
Because that's the other thing, It's like, human beings are lazy, petty, stupid, arrogant, selfish, little balls of lard. I think that's kind of how, and I'm being very generous and kind, because the way it's described in The Cloud of Unknowing is like, I am like the turd of a rat in a sewer, and you sort of like think, if you're just the average secular person, you're like, oh, look at these self-flagellating Catholics, how masochistic they are in their thoughts about. No, you don't understand. This guy has actually seen reality and has accurately measured how human beings behave, and we're basically bonobo monkeys on crack. That's what we are, and we're just lazy, useless bastards.
Crack as well.
Yeah, cheap, shitty crack that's half fentanyl and retards you, and because the thing is, that's our problem. And if you can fight that laziness, that weakness, that like, and you put yourself in uncomfortable situations again and again and again and again, until you train yourself to think of an uncomfortable situation as good. Like, oh, I'm uncomfortable again. Ah, great, I'm learning something. I'm alive. I can feel some pain. I just lost a finger. Now I know I'm living. And you think I'm kidding, but I'm not, because Ranulph Fiennes or
No, I
Fiennes.
know you're not kidding. I know you're not kidding. Yeah.
No, I know you know, but these guys probably don't.
Okay.
They haven't spent a year with me, like risking their life and limb on a daily basis, trying to do the shit that I'm saying is normal. Why are you hesitating? Jump! The puncher sticks are just there to scare you.
The thorns come out one by one. You've got the rest of the day to pull them. Don't worry about it.
There you go.
Yeah.
But the thing is, look, when you put yourself in, I'm really not kidding, at an extreme level, like Ranulph Fiennes or Fiennes, however you pronounce his name, the guy who like hiked across Antarctica by himself a few times, and he's lost fingers and shit, and he says exactly the same thing. He's like, when I met him 3 times, I managed to speak with him like 3 times. I went to like talks that he gave, and I did book signings or whatever, and I managed to have like little conversations with him. He's an awesome dude. And he goes, well, the problem with human beings is that we're such weaklings. We're so lazy and tired, and we're so weak and miserly, and we're like, I lost a finger, poor me, I feel so bad for myself. And the only reason that I hike with somebody else, with Mike Stroud, is like the guy that he did it with, and he goes, the only reason I go with someone else is because I know that I'm a weak, lazy, cowardly person. Again, this is a guy that, like, when he got dropped off on Antarctica, he hadn't tested all his gear, loaded up his shed, his whole thing, and he, like, with all his might, he managed to pull, and he moved it by 1 inch, and he was happy because, like, I knew I could move it.
I'm looking at some pictures of him, and he does not look like the kind of guy who fucks around.
Dude, like I said, I'm not kidding. And the thing is, he's one of the last few honest to God English gentlemen, and what I mean by that, which means, those guys that, like, I don't know, fought off like a couple of hundred Arabs with like one musket and like his saber and like one.
Yeah,
and
those had a cup of tea afterwards and a crumpet.
Yeah, and it's like, well,
it wasn't just
no, I still have my tea, so it wasn't really a war. It's like, what?
Teddy's dead. Is he? Jonathan's dead as well. Can you smell his corpse? I can. It's not very nice, is it? Give me more sugar, please.
Yeah, exactly. One of those guys. And that's what he was saying. He said, the reason I hike with Mike Stroud is because, I know I'm a weak, cowardly, scared person. I mean, I faint at the sight of my own blood. And he'll just plain outright say this. And he goes, but the thing is that when I'm there, miserly crying about my own pain, I look at Mike Stroud and I think, well, I'm going to stop now. I'm just going to stop and cry and just die here. But not before that bastard does. and that's what motivates him, so he's found his little... But it's absolutely true. If you can get yourself to a place where, like, when you're uncomfortable, and I'm having to learn that, it's an ongoing process, because I'm learning that with, like, the injuries that I've had, my back and my knee, and it's like, ugh. Before it was like in my 20s, like I broke my foot at the beginning of the class, and I finished the class with my broken foot, because, like, I wasn't going to stop. And my instructor goes, oh, your mawashigiri is not 100%. And I said, yes. I said, I'm sorry, but my foot's broken. And he looked at me like, what do you mean? I just broke my foot on the lineup. Somebody stepped on it by mistake. And he didn't believe me. I spent 6 months on crutches because of that, because he went out and, But that's how I was then. So now an injury now is like, pisses me off. It's like, what do you mean my knee can't? What do you mean my back can't? If I can just... And I'm like, nope. I gotta think different now. I just gotta system my way around it, and I just keep doing the thing, but it's some other way, find another way to do it. And then I have to rest today, because I need to rest today, and then that day I do something else, So it's an ongoing process that you have to get the discomfort. So now when I get the discomfort of whatever, my knee or my back, instead of going, fuck it, let me just cut it off and I'll tie on a wooden leg because that'll work better. Now I'm like, no, that's a discomfort. Okay, I'm going to heal it somehow. I'm going to find a way to fix it by doing something else. So it never ends, but you have to learn to, like, put yourself in, like, uncomfortable situation enough times because that's the only way you learn. That's the only way you learn anything. I mean, like with my son, again, when he was upset, one of the analogies that I use with him is like, listen, boy, how many times does your little sister fall over when she's learning how to walk? You can watch her a lot. How many times do you think you fell over when you learned how to walk? A lot. Are you walking now? You're walking. So how many times did you fail? Lots of times. You want to be good? You got to fail a lot of times, son. Do it. Keep doing it. Get it wrong. Get pissed off. Get more angry. Keep doing it. And he's now got that. It happened like a few things now. So now, like when it comes up, I'm like, and he's already, now I don't need to talk to him that much. He's just like, okay, daddy. And that's it. And it doesn't stop, because you become an adult. You're like, I can walk, I can read and write. That's it. I don't have to do anything else.
Yeah.
I have to do that now. But there's a Netflix series I could really binge on, and there's a nice packet of crisps. And yes, I should go to the gym, but I've got an extra couple of kilos. But I'm already married. I don't really need to look that good. And no, people don't do that. That's a problem. So. Woolly Ram says, well, says, I agree. Duolingo is all flashcards and remembering shapes. But for some people it works. For my wife, it works. She's learning, she's now putting phrases together like in Italian. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing that? Yeah, I haven't even done Duolingo for a while, but she's got the kind of brain that remembers that. But then you know how she is. She's like, here's a song once and she can sing it. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So different things for different people. Woolly Ram says, I have a mild dyslexia due to a lazy eye. It didn't stop me from reading hundreds of books. Well, there you go. Sam says, that's interesting, Kurgan. Do you compose your first drafts in English or Italian? No, in English. And, when I say my first draft, it's pretty much my final draft. I mean, like, on the blog, a lot of times I get upset because sometimes I'm doing it on the phone. And my phone's got the autocorrect thing, and there's some words I spell my own way, and then it changes it to another word, and I'm going so quick, I don't stop and check usually, and then when I reread it, like maybe 5 hours later or the next day, I'm like, oh, damn it, and it's a spelling mistake. So I don't do a lot of corrections. I mean, I just read through it for like basic grammar stuff, sometimes a spelling mistake, something that the autocorrect screws up or whatever, but. And no, I do it in English. If I'm writing in English, I do it in English. If I'm doing it in Italian, I do it in Italian. I don't translate. Both languages are equally. I'm probably more fluent in English in terms of technical terms. Not probably, definitely, but I mean, Italian is like first language for me as well, so it's not an issue. Albert Goldsteinberg. Goldsteinberg. That's a bit redundant. Says that you should stop being lazy and get a proper microphone. The mic rubbing against your sweat is blistering my eardrums. Oh, sorry, buddy. Trust Goldsteinberg to pick up on something to criticize me. Victim. I feel victimized now. Sorry. Yeah, no, I should. I do have a proper microphone.
At least get a clip or something so it stays away from the zip.
Yeah, no, I'll just hold it because I don't. Let's see, yeah. Woolly Ram says color or color. Oh, I've got a long. If you guys go to the blog, on the left side, there's now the Overlords of Mars, and it's got all the notes of like the Nazi insignia for the thing. Oh, there was another question. Like somebody asked me, what is the? Caleb says, in what order should Overlords of Mars be read? Well, if you wait for the one that's going to come out now, it's an omnibus, so you can't go wrong because they're all in there. It's like 820 pages of like hardcore science fiction in 3 books. Otherwise, it's labeled, the first book in the series, second book in the series. But yeah, they. I forgot what I was saying now. Okay, says I find Babel app is pretty good. Oh yeah, color. So anyway, if you go there, I also talk about my idiosyncrasies of writing because obviously it's color with a U. Because the English language was invented by the English, which, yes, we know they were basically monkeys until we came along and taught them to read and write and, build houses and stuff like that, walls, roads, aqueducts, and not to paint their arse blue, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
and then we learned how to build ships and fucked everything up, didn't we?
So there you go. so, so it was the English that did it. Now the bastardized colonialism of the colonies that screwed up the English language just won't do, and that's why I spell skeptic with a K, because the original word skeptic is Greek, and in English now the English have put a C in there, which reminds me of a septic tank instead of skeptic. The Greeks had a K in there, so I spell skeptic with a K, and I don't care if I've added it to my dictionary on all my like word processing programs so that it like doesn't correct it. and I'm sure there's probably some guy that reads my book because he keeps getting the K wrong, and no, it's intentional.
What you
Because
really
I'm
want to do for those people is every time you do that, spell skeptic with a K, is you want to footnote it and say, because it's the
yeah.
fucking original.
yeah.
But do
No, it's
that
like,
every single time.
with my writing, I'm actually a very elitist bastard. And the reason, I've explained, because I did a blog post called on writing, my writing specifically. And it explains all these little quirks. And it's like, well, if and I tease the Americans about their facile and simple language. And the reason that I write in proper English is because, well, American is facile and simple, of course, for simple-minded people. And then when I say and I spell skeptic with a K, and the way I spell kilometer, it's a lot more appealing to spell it close to the Italian, which is close to the Latin, which is the original. It's not the way the English do it, the other way around. And it's like, because I'm even more elitist, that's why I spell it with a K. It's like, if there was
So
a, yeah,
I will tell you as well, like as an English teacher, I got a student, obviously because I've got quite a clear British accent. My
yes,
students come to me and say like, "Oh, I've learned English really well," and they're basically fluent by this point. And
yeah,
they're like, "But I've learned American English, and I want to sound more professional." Like,
yes, or human,
exactly. Yeah.
bipedal. Yeah. Aged in the Sun says, I'll check this later. I have an appointment. Quote from my father. Hey, my name. You know what kind of Christian you are? A 10th century crusading one. High five, Dad. Thanks. There you go.
Nice. Very nice.
Very good. Sam Werb, is it possible to think in a language other than your mother tongue for those of you who have more than one language? Yes, of course. I've actually had a really screwed up. I don't know how this happens, okay? But I've had whole dreams in French. I understand French and I speak French. But the thing is, the French in my dream is like perfect. It's actually, and I know enough French and I remember the dream. So it wasn't just like, oh, I thought I could speak French. No, I remember like the girl in the dream was talking to me in French. The man in the dream was speaking to me in French. I was speaking back in, the whole dream was in French. And while I'm in the dream, I'm thinking, how the fuck is it that I'm speaking French like this, and I understand everything and everybody's speaking to me in French. And again, going back to the idiot savants, probably some part of my brain actually does know French really well. It's just buried quite deep. and,
Yeah.
and because I did French at school, I've had French friends. There were periods of my time I went to France, I spoke French. I probably spoke French more fluently then than I do now. But again, if you drop me in France in a week, I'll be speaking French. But it's like, how the hell is it that I have a whole dream in a language that I'm not 100% fluent in, or it's not like English or Italian. And in my dreams now, it could be either or. I could dream in Italian or English. I never even
I,
thought about that. It's a good question,
I
actually.
definitely have that because I'm only learning French at the moment. I'm living in France as we speak,
Yeah.
and even whilst I'm learning, I'll be walking down the street, and when I've got a particular thought, sometimes it will just come up in French, and
Yeah,
for some reason it feels better in French.
it is
Like some
because
thoughts feel better in Italian.
absolutely,
I've noticed
because
that.
each language has got like little idiosyncrasies to it. There's like little flavors of what that word really means in that language, that when you understand that, like for example, one word that comes to mind is the difference between arrogante and superbo. Arrogant and superbo, which doesn't really exist in English. Superb, it would be the approximation, but you don't use that to refer to a person. And the difference is a superbo is a guy that is acts like an arrogant fucker, but he actually can do the stuff that he does. He's just not humble about it. He's like, I'm the best fencer here, and he is. And he's just like, fuck you all, peasants. And it's a different meaning to arrogant, because in Italian, arrogant means a guy says, I'm the best fencer here, and he's shit. He's not. He's just wrong, you know.
Yeah.
So while the English language doesn't really have that differentiation, when you say arrogant, it could be an idiot that thinks he's good, or it could be a guy that's good and is not humble. So, and
But
every
even
language has that.
I've noticed that, but even with exactly the same idea, exactly the same word
Yes,
feels different in different languages. You know, like Pater Noster and Our Father.
yeah,
There is a different quality to them in terms of how they hit the
absolutely,
mind. There is a different
absolutely.
quality.
Because
There
from
is.
the Latin pater noster is a lot more of, not even official. It's a lot more.
It's more. There's a higher regality to it.
Yes, and it's more
You know what I mean?
respectful, and there's a whole
Yes.
host of. It's
And
like when like the Romans used to say "Hail Caesar" or whatever. It's not just
yeah,
"Hey, dude, how you doing? Hi, bro." It's not that. It's
exactly.
"Hail." Like we
Yeah.
are giving
Yeah.
you your due respect for being who you are, sort of thing.
And you notice that with the Latin prayers in general. That's why, I've found it really interesting being a language teacher and learning languages now, that you realize that languages are a kind of full body experience. Because even the very feeling that your body has when you say Our Father compared
Yeah,
to Pater Noster, you have to put a little bit more strength into saying Pater Noster, so it feels
yeah.
stronger and therefore it sounds stronger as well.
It's funny you
Yeah.
say that, because I learned the Hail Mary in Latin, like walking to work, the little walk out to do the tube. I just used to say it the
Mm.
whole time, and then till I like remembered it. But the Pater Noster, I learned by myself, not because of church or anything. It was in a little book I had when I was a kid, like a scouting kind of book, but it had that prayer in there for some reason, and I learned it by myself in Italian as a 7-year-old, 6-year-old, whatever. And even now, I still say it in Italian, and it's so funny because when I say Padre Nostro in Italian, the feeling I have is like, this is not good enough. It's like a little kid's version. I should really just knuckle down and do
Padre Nostro versus Pater Noster.
yeah, Padre
Yeah,
Nostro che sei
I know
nei cieli.
exactly what you mean by that. Yeah,
It's
I
like
know
Padre
exactly.
Nostro che sei nei cieli. It feels like, dude, this is like, it's like
It's
rice
too
pudding
casual.
instead of
It's
like a
too casual.
proper made royal cake with,
Yes,
with like rum in it or whatever.
I
It's
know
just
exactly what you mean.
I really need to do better. And
I've noticed that when I go to church now, right? Because whenever I've been to church in Italy, France, England,
yeah,
whenever we do say the prayers in the colloquial language, it's okay. But when everyone speaks in Latin, it's like, no, this
yeah,
is what we're here for.
it's a
This is what
whole
we're here for.
different, yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
And I guess that's where they're saying that the devil hates Latin comes from. I think it just feels like, yeah.
This is God's language. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, says aluminum or aluminium. Well, of course it's aluminium, sir. Again, Latin, aluminium, aluminio. You've got the other I in there, and the facile Americans just they drop letters. Oh, it's too difficult to add an U or an I.
Fast food culture, fast food language.
That's it. There you go.
Yeah.
Henry says, hi, bipeds. Hello, Henry. How are you doing, sir? Woolly Ram, I think in Hebrew or English, depending which language I last spoke, unless I intentionally swap. Oh, yeah, sorry. That was to the question that Sam asked, which is it possible to think in a language other than your mother tongue? Yeah,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
it is. Yes, absolutely. Okay says, yeah, like that woman who had a head trauma and woke up speaking Chinese. Not sure how legit it is, but sounds amazing. Yeah, but there have been, as far as I know, I mean, I didn't go deeply into this, but there have been documented examples of people just waking up and being able to speak a whole language that none of their friends, none of their family ever, like, I think one boy was like Turkish or something, and nobody could understand what he was saying, and he was like speaking fluent Turkish. It's like, what? It's just, which that's why, again, I don't talk much about this, because then all the whatever the trolls go like, hey, he's not a real cat. But that's why the idea of past lives, I don't think is necessarily wrong. I know that for very good reasons the Catholic Church says not ignore reincarnation. That's not our belief system, and I get it, and they're right to say that and do that. But even in the Bible, there's certain elements that I think And another thing that makes sense to me about it is like, dumb as I am, one life to figure out that like Jesus is the way. Ugh, to me, that's frightening. That idea that you only have like one human lifetime to figure that out is like, whoa. I'm sure God
But
gives us a
if
bit more time.
but even if it, one thought I did have in relation to that is that even if it is multiple lives, you would always want to convince someone that you only had one life.
Absolutely,
So
which is why the
God,
church, absolutely, because otherwise you end up like certain people that live in the triangular country. They go like, oh, it doesn't matter. I can just do
oh
it
no,
tomorrow or never,
right?
or just take your money and
Exactly.
not do the job because, eh, I'll just be
Yeah.
born a fly next time instead of an elephant. Or it's just no. So yeah, and there's
People
a
are
whole.
not just lazy, but they can be eternally lazy, can't they? Yeah.
Again, remember what we are. We're just lazy
Yeah.
little bastards. It's like, oh, some other life I've sorted out. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And that's why if you go up to a priest and you say, "Do I have multiple lives?" He's going to be like, "I'm going to get the fucking whip."
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Start messing
exactly.
around. Yeah.
That's why I like the Japanese, because the way they, Zen Shintoism essentially comes from Buddhism. But Zen Buddhism, go to a Zen Buddhist like retreat for 10 days. You know how they train people to like sit still and be quiet and pay attention with the bokken with a
Read.
stick. Yeah, it's not even. Sometimes it's a proper fucking stick. It's like, oh, your back's a little bit bent. That'll straighten it. It's like Sistema, the same thing. Oh, Giuseppe, you have pain here from punch. Okay, I'll give you another one on the face, so you don't worry about it. It's like, sort your pain in the belly out right away. Now you got your jaw to put back in place.
I'm going to use that as a life principle. You know, if my friend comes up to me and says, "I've had a really bad day at work," he's like, "It's fine. I've just killed your cat.
Yeah,
Don't
just like, I
worry about it."
know. It's it works though. People don't complain after that. It's amazing. Uh, yeah, that was so. There's people. Willie Ram says the Our Father prayer in English has too many connective words. My brain automatically omitted them, which made it Semitic Mediterranean origin obvious. Oh, Our Father who art in heaven. Yeah, so well because English is, in a way, English is actually, I think English should be the language of textbooks, of engineering, that sort of thing. Because it's very good for explaining detailed physical things. But it's almost rude from a Mediterranean perspective.
From a Mediterranean and an Eastern European perspective, I've noticed that
Yeah,
the biggest mistake all of my Eastern European students make, or my Russian students, is the connectives. But then if you talk to them about it, they'll say like, "Well, why do you need a the
yeah,
before you say the cake?" And it's like, "Well, because we fucking do, you know."
yeah,
But if you actually talk about it logically, it doesn't really need to be there because in context, you know exactly what they're talking about.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. That's
it
the
just always
thing.
seems like a
And
waste of
because
time.
the English people they put it's again almost like the autistic little extra words to make the context so clear. It's perfect for engineering. If you wanna, if it's well written, you can write something in English that will explain how to build one of those Tesla cars or whatever. While in Italian, ugh, we've got less words. Any one word in Italian can mean 10 different things depending on the expression, the context. Now, there are people who can write, probably 5 of them left in the country, who can write, I think of Italian as like if you play Dungeons and Dragons, it's like High Elvish. In Dungeons and Dragons, you had the language High Elvish, then you had Common Elvish, and then you had like Drow, the evil elves or whatever. They spoke a bastardized version. Proper Italian is like High Elvish. There's like only like 10 people in the country can probably read it and write it and speak it that way. But it's a precision that not only has the precision of the same English thing, but it also has all the human quality of connection and human elements. It's amazing. It's a really beautiful thing. if you go on the Sedevacantis site, when there's a book called The Short Treaty on the New Mass, and it's in English and in Italian. You read the English one, yeah, good, it explains stuff. You read the Italian one, it's written in that version of Italian, and it's fantastic. I mean, it's got humor in it at such a refined level that unless you're able to understand that level of language, it'll skip over you. But if you get it, it's like, fuck, you just like, boom, just took his head off with like a verbal slashing that is, you can't, it's really subtle and yet penetrating. So yeah, English is kind of rude. But I mean, like for example, you don't even have the feminine and the masculine. You don't have the polite form. The English polite form. Even I know that, and again, in very good English, there is a polite form-ish, but it's orcish to us. It's like we have a whole set of different words for when you're referring to somebody in the polite form. While in English, it's like you use the they kind of, they, sort of. So it is very interesting how, and I think that permeates the whole culture. I mean, like in England, things work. The trains tend to run on time, and all the phone boxes when they existed were all red, and all the buses are red, and all the post boxes are red because those are public things, and you should see them. And there's a logic to everything that they're doing. While in Italy, it's like you've got a post
Yeah,
box
yeah,
in one place that looks one with completely different in another town 2 kilometers over. And it's like, why?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, today I was changing some plugs. I was trying to like do something, and it was two different plugs that I had to like rewire, and I needed like
Microphone
four.
again, mate. Microphone.
Oh, sorry. And I had to use four different screwdrivers, like for two fucking. It's like, what the hell? What is
That's
wrong?
tragic.
It's just,
Yeah,
yeah, but that's just typically Italian. It's like, hey, everybody does their
yeah.
own thing. Like, fuck, just standardize the damn thing. It's a socket. Yeah.
Not so many speed cameras though. I'll give you guys credit for that. Fuck me, speed cameras in England are horrendous.
Oh, yeah.
I think every 10 meters. Yeah. Anyway.
Henry says you only have one soul to guard, but how many bodies that has, only God knows. Just like Sistema, 100%. Yeah, I still have wumps from him moving about me to remind me. Well, I'm not sure what that one was referring to. English is a bloated language lacking in finesse. I don't think so.
Depends how you use it. Depends how you
Exactly.
use it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it.
If
Yeah.
it's a language that one of the things I've definitely learned someone who teaches it is that it's a relatively easy language to pick up, but
Yeah.
it's extremely difficult to master. And when you combine all of the mixtures and the variety of grammar structures, and you really understand the depth of the vocabulary, it's an amazing language. If I was
Yeah.
appreciating some Shakespeare again recently, for example,
Yeah.
and Shakespeare is the bomb.
You know
He
what?
really is.
Shakespeare, the thing, now that you brought it up, Shakespeare is English that is much closer to the Mediterranean way of speaking.
Mm,
And if you go back
mm,
to read The Cloud of Unknowing in its original Middle English,
mm.
that I love that English because it took me a little while to pick up it, but that's English that has all the humane and human parts that the Mediterranean language has. And it's a completely different structure. The way they use the word wit, for example,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
it's beautiful, and that made me wonder. Like, I think that was probably because at that time, which was 1300 something, they were all Catholics. They were still Catholics. So the
Well,
human
Shakespeare was a
element.
Catholic as well. Shakespeare was a Catholic.
I didn't know that, but the funny thing
Yeah.
is that when you talk about mechanizing of the human mind, I've made this argument before that the Protestantism is what created the so-called Industrial Revolution, and it's all satanic. It's all, I don't care. Yeah, we got trains, and I know that like, oh, it made steam engines, and yeah, but it mechanized people. It made
That
people.
that was actually the last thing I wanted to talk about
Yeah,
before we wrap up this topic,
yeah.
because we've talked about what mechanization is, kind of what it looks like, the habits it puts people in. Um, I did want to say a couple more things about fear as well. One brief
Mm.
thing on the topic of fear that I wanted to mention was I have noticed in myself and in other people I know, people who you regard as autistic,
Yeah.
they are less autistic when they're less afraid. I've noticed that,
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
it's almost like it's the fear that keeps them in that little loop, because I think that little loop they have in their mind is like a little safety net they keep themselves in.
Yeah.
It ends up being like a little hamster wheel, and you have to have some level of courage to say, no, this little wheel isn't everything. There is a
Yeah.
bigger wheel that's actually of an infinite size that I need to check out. So yeah, but the
Well,
question
part of
of
that fear for autists is because you know people are so dumb because the people that tell you like when you're literally it's like a monkey judging what a human can do or can't do. It's like it's a monkey, you know, what does he know? Like most doctors say, oh, you know, autists cannot connect with their emotions, they're unemotional. It's a lot of horseshit. They're absolutely emotional, and they're trapped in their own head because they can't figure out why are other people doing what they're doing and how they're doing it. So he's like trapped in his own mind, and eventually that's why he loses his shit. Like when an autist loses his shit, he completely loses his shit because he's like, fuck it, I've had enough. You people are crazy. I don't understand what the fuck's going on. I'm trapped in my own brain here. I'm trying to figure it out, and you're all pissing me off because you keep doing shit that doesn't make sense.
I agree with that as explaining some of it, but I've got another hypothesis which I think explains other types of autists.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what it is autists, they want to understand things, right? Because it helps them to feel comfortable if they understand what the world is like and how to navigate through it and that kind of thing. So they create frames or they reach conclusions which they're comfortable with, and they can make sense of that, and they can make sense of
Yeah.
that and the other things that they can connect it to, but it doesn't work if they connect it to other things. So it's like, well, here's my safety box.
Yeah.
I've made my cube now. I like the cube. I know its
Yes.
dimensions, and I'm going to stay inside the cube. Yeah. And when other bits of reality knock on the door, I was like, oh, I'm a circle, by the way. It's like, no, fuck off. Circles don't exist. There are only cubes. I've made the
Yeah.
cube. I'm
Yeah.
staying
Yeah.
inside
Yeah.
the cube. It's like that, right? And that's where the fear keeps them. And so it literally boxes them in, mentally speaking.
Yes.
And they have to then eventually go, no, the cube can be a bubble, and let's make it pop and see what happens, you know. But
Yeah.
that is like, well, no, because if I pop the bubble, then I don't know where I'm going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. You're right.
it's
Actually,
like
that's a
that.
very good. Yeah. Very good point. Yeah. Was it Wooly said something here? Oh yeah. Wooly Ram says English is a bloated language lacking in finesse, and Caleb goes, just like most Americans, Wooly. Wooly goes, Americans can go on diet and work out, unlike the English language. I think it is. If Sam says, I wish I could get away with rolling my R's in my speech like Europeans do it. It sounds serious and formal, but not pretentious when you do it. The funny thing about that is like, you know, my little girl, who's verbally, that little kid is like way ahead of, I don't know, the norm by far. And at one point when she was just starting to talk, and she'd just go like now and then, and like, you know, my wife was like, how do you do that? Like, I said, what, you can't do that? And like both me and my older daughter were like teasing her, like, come on, do it, you can do it. And she was like, it sounded like Gollum, you know. She can't do like roller R's. It's like so funny. Like most English people, I suppose, can't. I don't know, but it's like she just can't do it. It's funny. And Wooly Ram says Japanese has a vocabulary specific for being polite, respectful, etc., depending on who is speaking to whom. Yeah, so does Italian and French and Spanish to a certain extent. Yeah. Tony, do you believe the theory that Shakespeare was someone else, Francis Bacon, or perhaps a committee? I don't. But
No, I don't really subscribe to it. I've never really looked into it, but
me neither.
I think people put a binary on it. Now, one of the
Yeah.
theories I heard, for example, is that, well, because he was talking about things that were happening in the royal courts, he must have
Yeah.
been a royal court member. And it's like, well, but it's also possible that he just spoke to someone who was in the court,
Yeah.
you know, or
Well,
maybe someone who was in the court wrote part of his work and then he wrote the rest of it. So
well,
I
you
think
know,
the main reason why, go on.
no, sorry, I don't mean to
No,
interrupt.
the main reason why I don't really believe it is because his voice is too consistent.
Yes,
I
and
think
another thing is, I think people mythologize fucking Shakespeare. For example, Dan Simmons, who I've read most of his books. I think Dan Simmons is a very good writer. But he had a forum at one point where he was going on about the sonnets of Shakespeare. And he was going on about sonnet, I don't want to get the number wrong, I think it was number 93. And he's like, oh, and it was going on. I mean, this on this Sonnet 93, the thing had gone on for pages. This forum had gone on for pages and pages of him saying how Sonnet 93 is just too ambiguous and nobody can really tell what it's about. And some people were saying, oh, it hints of homosexuality, and no, maybe it's just friendship. And it's just like, and it's literally Sonnet 93 is like, I don't know, 10 lines, something like that. It's not big. And I hope I still have it somewhere. I can't remember where it is now. But I had the complete works of Shakespeare in like a big form. So I went to read it. I'm like, okay, let me just check it out. Sonnet 93. I read it. Then I read the ones before and after, sort of to get a context. And I was like, this is pretty standard. He's just making a little song about his buddy. So I like facetiously, on purpose, just to see what would happen, I wrote, well, guys, I don't know why you've been talking about it for like 14 weeks and there are 97 pages on this topic. It's quite clear that old Willie was just talking about Bob, and Bob's his friend, and that's what this line means, and that's what that line means, and that. It fucking blew up. Dan Simmons deleted the whole fucking forum thing about that thing because I just crushed his, and he couldn't argue it. Now the thing about Dan Simmons is an English teacher as well, so I was just like, hey, you don't know, and I'm like, no, I do know because I proved this and I proved this and I proved this, and it relates to that other sonnet, and I literally had picked it up for the first time in my life, right? He deleted the whole subject, which had been going on for literally weeks, and I just thought, well, that's what happens when you've got a bit of an ego about certain things.
Yeah, because I don't. The other thing I like about Shakespeare is when I read his work, I don't get the impression that Shakespeare had an ego.
No. And he
Not
was
really.
making social commentary on the royal family. I mean, most of his stuff is piss takes. A lot of his stuff
His
is,
humor is great.
yeah, and pretty hardcore stuff. I mean, like, I'm like, man, he didn't get killed for that. That's quite impressive, you know.
I think Shakespeare is wonderful, man. I haven't been reading him. I've been watching plays and films,
It is
as in
a
like not remakes, but I like the plays because obviously it is performed.
it's a lot easier
But I
to for me when I was at school. I didn't like Shakespeare because I didn't understand the English was an older English, which I didn't
yeah,
grasp. So, but when I first saw like Hamlet, like they did a little Mel Gibson of all people was in Hamlet, and he
he
was in
is.
other things, yeah. And then when I could see the actions, I could understand what was going on. I was like, man, this is actually really good. And so much later in life, that's why I had the complete works of Shakespeare
For
also.
anyone who's interested, by the way, you can find some nuggets on YouTube. If you type in like Shakespeare full play or full movie,
Oh,
there's about 10 different performances. Most of them that I've found from Laurence Olivier.
oh,
So he does
he.
like the
I quite
whole 2 hour Hamlet
I
is a
quite
wonderful
like
time.
Laurence Olivier. Is
Me too. He's very colourful. And yeah,
yeah,
he's got his version of Henry V is on there. The whole thing.
he's very
There's
theatrical. He's very
Yeah,
like,
it's super
yeah,
theatrical.
it's like wow, wow, everything is like larger than life, but in a way that doesn't
Exactly.
actually irritate me.
No, I know exactly what you mean, which is special, right? Because
Yeah,
usually it's very cringeworthy.
yeah, he's not like Jim
So
Carrey type of
no,
overacting.
no, he's not cartoonish about it. He's
No,
somehow refined whilst being cartoonish. It's great.
yes, yeah,
Um,
it's like a good
okay, good.
caricature.
Yes, yeah. So Shakespeare. I'm just going to look now actually at some of the ones. 'Cause I know that he did Hamlet's on YouTube. There's also other like BBC performances and stuff. They're usually from like the 60s and 70s or whatever.
Yeah,
The whole of Othello is on there. That's quite a good one. Henry V. Yeah.
yeah,
There's a King Lear,
okay.
which is done by Ian McKellen.
Oh, I don't like that guy. I can't. I don't like him as. I don't know. He just
Oh,
rubs me the
mate.
wrong way.
The whole Richard III is on there.
Oh, there
That's
you
pretty
go.
cool. Richard III
Okay,
is fantastic.
okay says in a cab, on a train, at the station, English can be difficult to master. Well, you see, it makes sense to me because you're inside the cab, but you're
Yeah.
on the train because the train is on the tracks,
Yeah.
and you're at the
From the
station because the station is kind of an
It's a
open
place.
area. It doesn't necessarily have a roof all the time.
Oh, sorry. Before we finish the Shakespeare thing, I've got to mention the whole of the 1970s. Julius Caesar is on there. With who's that guy who loves guns? Who's the main guy? Charlton Heston.
Oh, he's
Charlton Heston
awesome. Yeah, I
plays
like him.
he plays Mark Antony, and if you want to know what rhetoric is about,
Yeah.
then watch the Mark Antony speech in that version. It's fantastic. It's so
Yeah.
good. It's like a 10 minute soliloquy he gives to
Well,
piss off the right people, and it's just great.
I don't necessarily like it in terms of its language and its plot and everything the most, but there is a special place in my heart, of course, for the Merchant of Venice.
Yes.
I think you know why.
Yeah, for multiple reasons. It's because you're Venetian, isn't it? That's the
Of
primary
course.
reason.
Nothing to do with a pound of flesh.
You've never really been a man for selling, have you? So.
Henry says, yeah, it's a heroification of Shakespeare by academia to keep the academia cycle going, and the reader satanic bullshit of deconstructed
Derrida.
text.
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
Oh,
It's the kind of
yeah, the right.
bullshit I had to deal with in fucking philosophy at university.
Deconstructed
Like
text. Shakespeare was just really good. Simple as text actually
if
mean
you
things.
want,
Yeah, it's exactly right.
if you want a nice golden bullet, I came across some of Derrida's stuff and Foucault stuff recently, and I thought, let me put it in perspective, mate. When we did the course at Brighton, there were like years worth of material dedicated to Foucault. He was just.
I don't even know who that is. Sorry, who's it? How do you?
Foucault is a French philosopher.
Oh, Foucault. Okay. Sorry. Yes.
Foucault. Yeah, that
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. No, I know who he
And
is.
there
I
was
do.
Derrida as well.
I hate that guy.
I hate him too. I absolutely hate him. And actually, what I do is I use passages from his work to show students how not to write.
It's not just that.
Like,
Foucault is on record himself for having written. I can't remember the title of it. It's about a girl or something.
Him being a pedo. Yeah.
Well, he was. It was but he specifically said, "I wanted to write a novel about nothing, that said nothing and meant nothing, but that like people would like buy and try and like think it was stuff like about something." So he was just a complete. He was like the George Rape Martin of his generation. That's just how I see him. Absolute fucking trash. Because all that Martin did is he tried to invert the Lord of the Rings. He's just like tried to make satanic shit out of something that was awesome.
So one of the things that made me chuckle was, like I said, they were dedicating years worth of courses to people like Foucault and Derrida. I had to read a lot of their work and whatever. And I was completely done with academia by that point. But I was listening to stuff. I was listening to stuff on YouTube recently where people were like summarizing their work, and I thought, what was this stuff all about again? And one of the things that made me laugh was I'll try and be concise about it. But you got Derrida, for example, and Derrida had this magic epiphany that you can never really understand what an author is writing because you can't really understand it from their point of view. Let's not argue it for now, but that was the idea, okay?
Let's not.
And then Foucault comes along, right? And apparently Foucault used Derrida's work to develop his own works. And then the print presenter said, however, there was some disagreement about what Derrida actually meant by his work. And I thought, well, yeah, no shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous, isn't it? And that's why at the back of the Face on Mars, my original Face on Mars, I wrote there, if you read about the author, and I said, yes, and he believes that philosophy has to be lived. It's a real thing. Because like actual philosophy, real philosophy, encompasses science, logic, and math. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And all science is a subset of philosophy. And there's people today, like even intelligent people, erudite people, that go, "Oh no, it's outside. They're separate." No, you cretin, you absolute moron. Philosophy is literally the study of life, of everything, of reality. You can't discuss philosophy if you don't understand logic. You can't do philosophy if you don't have logic in it. And you can't do maths if you don't have logic. So it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
If anyone wants, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but if anyone does want a nice rant that I've written about this, which is one of my less autistic works. I wrote a book this year called On Truth, Why All Modern Talk of Relativism is Evil, Suicidal Nonsense.
Very good, yes. And Tony's books are usually quite concise.
It's tiny. I'm a millennial, so I get bored after like 50 pages. So
No, no,
this one's a
it's
solid like 80.
yeah,
Yeah, you can
yeah,
read it the whole thing in like 2 hours, but I've already had a couple of people read that and say, look, I know I already agree with you, but just from reading that, I have to understand my own ideas more and whatever.
that's good.
I wrote two books this. Well, I wrote three books this year, but the two philosophy books I wrote, one was very autistic, where I was making everything structured and mathematical. But the second one, I thought, well, I've actually done the maths now, so I can start to loosen up a little bit. It's much
Yeah.
more conversational and stuff. So
Well, you see, I was just thinking like the different approaches that you have. Like what you're saying about truth being relative is evil, and you write a little book about it. My approach to that, since I'm about 16, and when people try to tell for the when I was about 16, that's when they first started trying to inject that crap into our heads about, well, everyone has their own truth. The first time I heard that sentence, I just bing, like my little old. That's like when Otis just lost his shit. What just happened here? 'Cause I would like argue with the teacher in class. I'd be like, that's absolute nonsense, total rubbish, nonsense. You're teaching us lies. And they're like, well, you can't. No, no, you're a liar. You're a liar, and you're wrong. The truth is absolutely the same for everybody. And if you don't believe me, let me stand up there, grab you by the hair, and smash your head against the wall. And then you tell me that, oh, maybe I'm imagining the wall. Yeah? Well, no. Argue that. And they'll be like, argue that. Oh, so walls are an absolute. But when you're trying to tell me that, like, oh, no, maybe this means no. There's one truth. Now, you might know it, you might not know it, you might be able to know it, or you might not be able to know it, but it's there. And that's it.
my my favorite one was just everyone's got their own truth. Huh, is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, but you see, that becomes.
I know it becomes a game.
Yeah, no, you see, like I've yet. I did this with journalists, dozens of them, honestly. Like, and especially after I started, I wrote the first on Mars, and I was doing interviews and stuff, and like they'd come up and they'd come up with this fucking nonsense. I've done it to dozens and dozens and dozens of journalists in seminars and in talks, in like fucking 100 people in the room. And they start with that shit. Oh, but that's just your opinion. I said, no, it's not an opinion. It's an objective, measurable fact. That's what happened on Mars. We've got the crater there. You can see it. You can figure out the explosion. You can figure out the water flow because you've got the riverbed. Oh, but it's just your. And like, no, it's not an opinion. Oh, but we all have our own truth. I'm like, no, come here. There's a coffee table. I'm going to smack your head into it until you tell me that we all have the same truth. How many times should we go for? No, I'm not kidding. I'm going to come there and grab you by the hand and smash you against the wall. Don't you want to test your theory? It's like, well, are you a coward? Do you not believe what you're saying? And it invariably, the whole room ended up bursting out laughing. And then just, they'd go away. My precious. Because it's such nonsense. And you see, the thing is, like, we're now
foundation of insanity. Yeah, go on.
No, it is like now in Italy. Now what's happened is this girl was killed. Cecchettin is her name, and look, no one really know. No one's. I'm never gonna know what happened. No one can tell exactly what happened. This is what we've been told, right? Her boyfriend killed her, stabbed her 30 times or whatever, ran away to Germany, got caught in Germany, got extradited, is in jail, and apparently he said he did it. Okay. The circumstances of when and how this happened are really kind of weird. The sister is essentially a practicing Satanist with upside down crosses and everything, who did an interview shortly after she died, which she wasn't reading off a page, but it sounded like, and she immediately started going on about how we have to change the patriarchy. Her father is giving interviews around, where he's sort of smiling in the interview and saying, yes, the patriarchal thing. All over Italy, 1 minute of silence in schools and everywhere at work because, for this poor girl that died. All right. And it's all about how, violence against women is terrible. And in the little town square, they put up a little red bench with an emergency number and red shoes because, they're like violence against women, blah, blah, blah. And it's all part of making sure that you got none of the guys that were like in 1095 when they decided, no, this is not right. We're going to take Judaism back. those guys can't exist anymore, because as soon as the guy says, no, but wait a fucking minute, oh no, your kids get taken away, your divorce happens, and you've just been crushed by the whole system. But coincidentally, what upsets me a little bit is, what about the 18 or 20-year-old girl a little while earlier that was literally chopped up into a fucking bag by a Nigerian guy? Not even a paragraph in the fucking newspapers, Oh, she's gone. Next day, news cycle gone. Oops. Oh, why is that? Oh, that one doesn't fit the narrative, does it? That patriarchy that comes from Nigeria, that's okay. Yeah. It's all fucking nonsense. And the thing is, like, people have been brainwashed with this shit for so long that it's come to the point where you're literally at the bar and somebody says, I can't do the math to give you the change. Just take the coins. And you're like, why, dude? $2.50. You got like $3. She gives you 50. And, oh no, don't oppress me with your racist maths. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? You fucking moron. It is. It's becoming like that. It's get to the point where, like, you just say a normal thing, and I'm doing it. I'm going the other way. As you know, I have these little reactions. When somebody starts to say, well, because after all, we're all human beings. I'm like, are we? Well, I mean, I'm 6'2". You're like 5'10". We're not all the same, are we? No, but you know what I mean. No, I don't. Explain to me. What do you mean?
Actually, no, yeah.
Yeah.
My
What do you
truth
mean?
says that.
Yeah, exactly.
Viking Titan. My truth says that you're just some kind of little weird goblin that doesn't have anything.
Yeah, it's just, it's so irritating.
Yeah.
Sam Wereb says, I recently read Julius Caesar, magnificent. Okay, says Macbeth is a banger.
Yeah.
It's playing words there. Sam Wereb, I'm needed as bodyguard and beast of burden for a grocery store trip. Thanks for the stream. A very good one. You're most welcome. Good luck in your endeavours. Fight off the people in the aisles that are trying to get your one crisp out of the 50,000 flavours. Okay, says, no man born of woman. Spoiler. She had a cesarean section. So smart. Woolly Ram, continental philosophy text should be used as kindling for Novus Ordo and pedophiles.
Heartily agree. I can't stand the stuff.
Well, it depends on which philosophers, because some of them are decent, but like Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, these people are like, what? He was German in the first place, so why would you even? But then you read his crap. You need to read like 2 pages of Schopenhauer to know he was a complete incel, frustrated, bitter goblin that couldn't get laid.
There's that letter that his mum wrote to him. Did you see that? Where his mum
No.
said basically that to him in a letter. Like, it's such a shame that you're so smart. It's just a shame you don't do anything with it. She said, if you actually went out and got, she said, like, if you actually went out and got a job and found a woman, you wouldn't be wasting your time writing all this crappy philosophy.
There you go. You could tell. I would bet anything that Schopenhauer was the kind of ugly little freak who wanted to have a supermodel wife and couldn't. And it doesn't matter what I do; they just don't love me the way I want. And that's it. That's Schopenhauer.
They don't see how intelligent I am. I'll show them. I'll show them how intelligent I am.
That should make them moist, and it doesn't.
But why? Because I'm too brilliant. They just don't understand me.
I think Schopenhauer, like Vox coined the term gamma. I think in the future, when you go to the dictionary, that'll be his picture there, Schopenhauer. That's him.
They should order philosophers in that order, shouldn't they? So you have like coloured section. Like the reds are all the gammas. You've got like Schopenhauer, and then you've got like Nietzsche. Then you might have the deltas, who are people like C.S. Lewis or whatever.
You know who was a sigma philosopher?
What do you reckon?
Alexander the Great.
That's well, true, yeah.
Gordian knot.
Yeah.
There, it's done. Yeah.
I think some of the continental philosophers I had respect for, I didn't like them, but I had respect for them, as I did actually respect Kant. I respected him.
So did I, funnily enough. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says or whatever, but
he's wrong.
Yeah.
And he's regarded as an enemy of the church as well, like quite a big one. But he still actually did do reasoning. He kind of went, no, there is something we're trying to figure out here. A, Y, A, B, C, D. And you go, fair enough.
Hobbes also had.
Hobbes was all right like that.
Yeah, I kind of think he had some points. Um,
Most of the pre-modern philosophers did, like
yeah, like
even people
Aristotle,
like
Socrates,
Descartes.
or
Oh, the classicals, obviously,
yeah,
yeah. But I
yeah,
was thinking of people in the kind of like modern era, like Descartes, John Locke, Hume. They all had
yeah. That's
arguments.
something. Yeah,
They were all doing reasoning, right? And they were all actually making
Spinoza.
arguments. Whereas,
But
yeah,
I don't think there were Aquinas or Saint Augustine
no,
or
no,
what's
no,
the other
not
guy?
even close.
The Stoic guy. I always forget his name. The Roman guy.
Oh, it's
Seneca.
Aurelius, Marcus Aurelius,
Seneca.
Seneca. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, they weren't on that
um,
level, but yeah.
yeah.
Okay, says,
So
but
really,
that's
what I've
my
noticed with
truth.
them is that
This is- okay, but that's my truth. So tired of that nonsense. I can't breathe. Safe and effective. It's Madcuff's mother who had the C-section. Oh, it's Macduff's mother who had the C-section. Sorry.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a funny old world. It's becoming funnier
So,
by the minute.
well, there is that too. Plenty of meme content, isn't there? Yeah.
I just had a long conversation with my brother actually about I don't know. Yeah, I probably shouldn't say, but anyway, he works in security, so he's got like information, let's say, about situations and people and the stuff that goes on in South Africa that is just like it's, I mean, he just gave me a statistic, like when I was living in Cape Town. Yeah, let me separate it from whatever he does, but yeah, the when I was working as a bodyguard in Cape Town, there was an average of 52 murders per week and another about 40, 50 per weekend. So it was up to about 100 a week when you include the weekend.
Africa doesn't mess around, does it?
No, fucking South Africa was crazy at that time, and it was like people would get shot for nothing, like literally, like road rage would end up in the bodies. It was just, that was like standard. And so I could relate to that thing. But I mean, imagine if like in England, any country in Europe, uh, you had like I don't know, like a big factory, or some, let's say like a warehouse district that's a bit dodgy, right? And as a result of the crime in that area, whatever, you had in like a 6 month, 4 month, 5 month period, something like that, you had like 50 bodies. And these are not bodies that are like, these are like violent criminals that get taken out by the cops or security or whatever in like a 6 month period. That would be like fucking front page news, right? It's not something that would be swept under the car. It would be like, we can't hide fucking 50 bodies in one area for like, what the fuck? What's going on in that place? Like I said, we used to get 50 murders a fucking week just in the greater Cape Town area. It was like, that wasn't South Africa. That was just Cape Town. That's what I'm saying. So it's like, I went to see a film when I was still talking to my sister, called I can't remember the name, but it was basically about the mafia in Naples and how bad it was and how the violence was and how, fucking bodies all over the place and whatever. And, it was a film, it was like fiction based on some whatever. And at the end of it, they had the statistics, and they said, like, in the sort of whole region, not just Naples, the region that Naples is in, um, over like between, I can't remember now, 1985 and 1995, like a 10-year period, there were almost like 4,000 murders. And I was like, we're watching things like, oh, it's pretty bad, huh? And there are almost 4,000 murders in like 10 years. We're like, wait, that's like fucking 400 a year. That's like one a day. Fuck, we do that in like
Huh.
we do that in like a month
Yeah,
in
yeah.
one
You say
city.
that.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, well, fucking pussies. I was in it. I was in that world. So I was like, the fuck are these guys complaining about? That's like 400 bodies a year from crime, and it's mostly criminals anyway. Who cares? It's like, it's not even a thing. Like we literally got bodies dropping like flies, and it's like, the thing is, South Africa has evolved to kind of change the laws now. For example, like security forces and the cops or whatever, they can't use hollow points bullets because against humans. They're trying to do that thing like in Europe or whatever. It's like when I was working there, you used core bonds. Core bonds are like it's basically like hydroshock is a thing it's got a little hole in it, so it's like a hollow point, so it expands. A core bond is sort of like it expands, fragments, and spins, like, and if it can throw some radioactive shit on you, it'll do that too. That was like my carry ammo, and but the thing is, like they're trying to make it like Europe or America or whatever, but it's like a fucking Wild West. And then what happens is like you get cops that have to deal with this shit, and the cops sometimes will be like, "Oh, we had to like 5 cops have arrested like 45 people," and it's like, "Oh, we can't prosecute that." Like, well, why? Well, how do 5 cops arrest like 50 people? Well, like with guns. Yeah, but the other guys had guns. Well, so what? You shoot first, or you fucking show you're not messing around. Maybe they had handguns and you had like shotguns and rifles. No, they all had AK-47s and so did you, kind of thing. And it's like, you had the
Yeah,
same kind of weapon, and like, how do 5 cops arrest like 50 people? And it's like,
yeah.
well, oh, and 10 of them are dead. And it's like, and kind of their like chests are all exploded out, and like the cops like, maybe I had the wrong ammo in there.
They see the chest blown blown out, and they go,
Yeah.
Did you use minimal lethal force?
Well, I had a few slugs left over in my shotgun. I had to get rid of them. I wasn't sure if they were still working. It's like shit that happens there. It's just so fucking. I mean, it's kind of brutal, but it's kind of funny if you got to if you kind of, I suppose, used to that shit. But
it's just I've got 2 images in my mind at the moment. I've got now that image, funny as it is, and then I've also got the image of 10 police officers in the UK trying to arrest someone with like a stick.
Yeah, the video of like one little black dude with a stick, and there's like 11 cops running away from him and then trying to grab him, and it's like,
Yeah.
I swear, like South Africans would like piss themselves laughing seeing that.
Yeah.
One South African cop could take that guy out. You wouldn't even. It would just be like it wouldn't even be a punch. It would be like an open-handed slap that sends him into next week. It's like, what are you? And the cops running away, and there's like 11 of them. What is wrong with you people?
It's so pathetic. Yeah.
I remember like Aldous telling me like he was at what's that, the tube stop, the famous, it's one of the, where all the cinemas are, I forget the name now, the tube stop there, like in sort of very city centre.
Piccadilly. Is it Piccadilly?
Not
Circus?
Piccadilly, the other one a bit further down with the
Mayfair.
no, it's in
No.
in the, like, where the square where you've got all the cinemas, the main cinemas where they do the Odeon, where they do, or they used to, I don't know. Anyway, he was at that thing, like having a drink there at a pub, and he says that like this guy did something, I don't know, it was like an Eastern European guy, like, who, I don't know, he had like some disagreement, or he punched the guy, something, and then the cops arrive, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he's like, hey, what do you want? And he's, well, you assaulted this man, and now we have to arrest you. And he's like, well, I'm going to finish my cigarette first. No, you stand up now, we're going to arrest you. Like, oh. He stands up and goes, no, I'm finishing my cigarette. And then they're like 4 cops, they get on him, and they like bend one arm behind his back, and they put the handcuffs on one arm. Now they're trying to put the other arm behind his back. And this guy, like typically sort of Eastern Bloc guy, so he's got the one arm behind his back, which they're trying to like, and he's like, he's just holding his arm so they can't actually lock his arm. So he's just holding it behind his back, and he's like smoking a cigarette, and they grab his other arm, and they bend it, and he's like, oh yeah, no, I'm not finished. And he like pulls his arm back with like 4 cops hanging onto it, and just like, just like, all this was watching this, and I was like, I was so ashamed for the British police. I was feeling so sorry for them. I mean, I was thinking, what kind of useless men are you? I mean, one Russian policeman, he would have just taken out the stick and knocked the guy unconscious. Like, why are they? What is going on here? It's so sad.
It is pathetic.
What's going on? Oh, Jerome, hello Jerome, says, so you live after years of me being absent. Hope you're doing good. Kingdom growing? Yeah, it is actually. A few setbacks, but like one of the one of the guys you know, he's actually bought a house here.
Oh wow.
He's put the deposit down, and there's a problem because he doesn't speak Italian, so they're asking me to go sign for him. But he got the stuff translated, but he didn't fill in the names. Like, dude, what the fuck you doing? You got everything translated and notarized, and you didn't fill in your name and my name. Like,
Yeah.
ugh. So now he's
Yeah.
probably gonna have to come here, but then you need a witness that speaks English and Italian, and then you need the translator that like translates it, and then you need me to sign the thing. And it's like, dude, I need like 4 people that can speak English. Where I'm gonna find them here, I don't know.
Mm.
So it's like, it's a bit of a mission, and that's holding everything up. But otherwise, he's bought the place. So that's one guy who's moved, or I don't know if he's going to move here or rent it or whatever. But at least there's like a base here. There's actually little houses now going for sale, like 50, 60 grand, like apartments, and and they're like walking distance. It's like my friend, like
Mm.
the flat under him is selling. There's a couple others in
Ah, I
town.
know that one. Yeah.
So it's and one of the ones that was on sale got bought by the dad of one of the kids that goes to school with my daughter. So it's something is happening. I don't know. It's moving. It's and the prices are a lot lower than they were. When I bought. When I bought, I got basically ripped off. But like, yeah. Caleb says, sounds like the 4 female New York cops that let a guy get away after cuffing one hand. They called the men in to track him down and make the arrest. Oh, that's another funny story actually, because I used to train cops when I was in the UK, like to do system and stuff. And I may have told the story before, but there's a lady cop. She was a rookie. She just started the training and she wanted to be good. So she wasn't actually a model. She was not a joke. She was an ex-model who decided like, yeah, she had enough of that world and wanted to become a policewoman. And she was doing the training to be a policewoman, and at the same time she was doing private classes with me to like learn Sistema. And she did them for 3-4 months, and she was actually, she got good. And I've told the story. I've told this piece of the story before, but for those that haven't heard it, I'll just tell it quickly, which is not the main story. I want to tell another one. But I had this SO15, this armed police guy, come for a session, and he was like in his, he had like, he is in his early 40s probably, but he'd been doing that job for 25 years, which he told me like 10 times, and he's a big guy, big, big, at least my height, but like a lot bigger, definitely goes to gym, like a proper, like, and he's like, oh, so how does this work? And I said, look, you're a bit you've got too much stuff going on right now, I can't work with you. So Alex is here, the girl that was there. So she's been doing it for a while, so I'll use her to show you some of the stuff, because otherwise you won't understand. And he just thought I was bullshitting him, and I was like, and I saw his thinking like, this guy's not going to do anything. I said, look, dude. He said, no, but I want to feel. I said, I can't punch you because I have now trained so much in this system. I don't know. It's a struggle for me to try and punch in a karate way, which you could take. But if I punch you in a Sistema way and I really punch you, I'm going to fucking hurt you. So I'm not going to do that right now. And he thought I was lying to him. I was bullshitting him. I said, look, Alex, just come here. Like, just stand with the guy. I said, look, she's like, I don't know, she was maybe like 45 kilos wet, like 90 pounds if that. I said, Alex, I said, look, I want this guy to feel a little bit what Sistema is like. So can you just punch him? And he's like, you don't mind, right? I asked the guy, like, and I set him up because I did, because I just thought, fuck you, you think I'm lying to you, okay? I said, no, you don't mind, do you? If she hits you, you're a big guy. He was like, what can she do? And it's like, yeah. I said, so Alex, just hit him. But wait, no, in the stomach, And I told her, I said, don't go for the short ribs, right? You're gonna break a rib. Don't break his ribs. Okay, just hit him in the stomach. Like. And she stood in the proper normal Sistema pose, just with your arms already out, like no pull back. There's no like. She's just got her arms like in an L shape, like. Then she goes, but how that? I said, Alex, just punch him. And she goes, look at him. You think you're gonna hurt him? Just hit him. Oh yeah, okay. So like a girl. She's like, oh yeah, hello. Giuseppe told me I can't hurt him, so I can just punch him. And I swear, I wish I had it on video. It was the guy's face. He was all like, yeah, you can. Oh. And he was like, dude. Oh, I need to sit down. I felt that. It's like, Yeah. So he goes, but how do you do that? And I said, look, stand up. And then I said, look, I'm going to do something now to you because I can't work with you right now. You're too stiff. I need to release some stuff, but it's going to be emotional for you. You might cry, you might laugh. I don't know, whatever you got into. Oh, no, it's no problem. So I just tapped him. I just like, tut, 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 tut. He just bawled. He started crying. Like, I said, yeah, don't worry, sit down, have a glass of water. And then he got up and he never saw him again because, of course, he was embarrassed. And but the thing is that the girl, right? Because I kept training with her after a bit less when she started being a full active policewoman, whatever. And then after a few months, she came back and goes, I think I made a mistake. I'm training with a bunch of wusses. It's like, what the fuck? We arrested a guy, and he was like, he was a pretty big guy, and like, I managed to get him down, and now I've got his arm behind his back, and I'm trying to put the handcuffs on. I'm expecting my partner to help me, because I'm like a girl, and I'm like 45 kilos wet, and this guy's like kind of your size, and he's just like mugged an old lady or whatever, and I'm trying to handcuff him. But because I'm expecting the guy to help me, I was like, well, where are you? And while I'm looking away, the guy gets up and he runs off. And I'm like, quickly, let's go get him. And this is her male partner, right, who's like kind of my size. He's like, oh, he got away. Like, well, he hasn't got away yet. Fucking run. So she chased this guy down, put him down again, handcuffed him on her own. And she was like, I don't know what these people are like. And I'm like, Alex, why do you want to be a cop? Eventually you're gonna get hurt because, okay, you're good, okay, I've trained you, but you're still 45 kilos wet, and I'm glad that all went well for you, and that it's like I couldn't believe it. I was like ragging on him the whole way back to the station, and even at the station because fuck him, why wouldn't he help him? So it was so funny because she had such a successful outcome, but she still reacted like a woman. It's like, well, she's the man supposed to. Like, it was beautiful. And I said, maybe you should just do something else. It's not like you're not doing it for the money. Quite clearly, I know you want to help people, but there's many ways that being a cop is not necessarily. But yeah, so it's just funny how things work out sometimes. But yeah, and she was a female cop that, like, the cool thing about her is that it's like when you teach a woman that listens to shoot, the same thing. Like, I've done this more than once. So we're like, with a girlfriend I had or whatever, took her to the range, and one of the guys I used to work with was like, oh yeah, I can shoot, and I'm gonna teach you. And I said, look, don't listen to a fucking word he says. Whatever he said, just zone out. And she did, and I'm like, okay, now listen to what I'm telling you. I'm just gonna tell you 3 things. You do the 3 things, and then he shot the target. And then she shot the target, and she outdid him, and she'd never picked up a gun before. And he gets so pissed off, and I did it to him like more than once. He gets so angry with me. They're like, no, you trained her before. I'm like, no, ask her. It's because they listen. And so, and that's what she was like. So she's the kind of girl that, like, if I would have picked her to be like my buddy in a foxhole or whatever, more than I would pick your average male British cop now. Average male British cop 30 years ago, 40 years ago, yeah, they were solid. Now, nah, I wouldn't fucking bet on one. You might get lucky, and the thing is, she would have like stood there, and she would have done everything that she's supposed to do and done it well. And I think that's such a rare thing in police now. It's just all, yeah, whatever. Anyway, well, we still have quite a little crowd. 17 people still. Oh, Stinky Peterson. Hey, Lord Kurgan. Beard is looking good. So, I actually hate the beard, but I'm just trying it out. Again, that whole thing about be uncomfortable. It really irritates the crap out of me. I don't know how people... I mean, it's gone past the itching phase, so it's gone past that. But how the fuck do people have a beard? Because, like, when you eat, it gets messy. Like, you don't know if you gotta fucking clean your whole face. And then, like, maybe it's just my beard. I don't know, because my hair doesn't grow. It grows all over the place. So it's like it interferes with each other. So when you move your face, it's almost like you can feel like it feels like you got little fucking caterpillars crawling all over your mouth, near your face, and it's just like, why do people even have beards? It's just wrong. Plus, you can see it's a straggly thing. I mean, this has been, I don't know, 3 weeks at least, 2, 3, no, maybe only 2 weeks, something like that. I want to see if I've never grown a beard, so I want to see if I can actually get it out to there or something. So I don't know. We'll see if it stops interfering. Willie says, "Join me, Kurgan. Let this whiskers free." No. I'm only doing it because it's irritating me, and I'm like, just sometimes just have to do random shit that like another thing I've decided to try now for a while just to see, because I mean I know the effects of this but I'm only going to eat meat for a bit. No more carbs of any kind, no sugar.
I tried that for a while.
Well, you don't need
Hard.
to.
Well, no, just you know, some of the women in the Catholic Church in the UK,
Yeah.
they're always telling you what to eat, and it's like having like 5 mummies. It's quite something. I do take their, because I respect them, so I take their advice. But I did try that for a while, and I personally, I think ultimately I didn't really notice much difference.
You wouldn't, because
quite difficult.
It'll make a difference when you're older, or if you ever get fat, which I doubt. But
yeah, I'm not getting fat anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not really the kind of guy
I'm
that gets
getting fat at the same rate I'm getting tall, mate.
No, but as you get older, your metabolism slows down a bit. Your inflammation takes longer to get away. So that sort of thing. And I know, grains have never agreed with me. Pasta's never been a thing for me. Bread's never really been a thing for me. So it's like, fuck it. Most beers take a while to come in fully, up to 3 months in some. Yeah, I'm not gonna last 3 months, but maybe a month and a half, something like that. Willie Ram says about mechanical thinking, an extension of it, Protestantism and rules-based order. Yeah, that's exactly right. And people don't get this, but Satan doesn't work on human lifetime terms. He works on centuries. That's what happened. 500 years ago we had the start of Protestantism, and now we have the rules-based, which I change whenever I want to suit me because I'm the guy. My own truth. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another element of it that you and I have encountered in the past, right? I mean, arguing with people about things to do with Catholic doctrine or whatever, or logic, it's like focusing on the details and not focusing on the principle. One of the examples that you always give in terms of knowing the difference between mechanical thinking and non-mechanical thinking is like Roman law versus Anglo-Saxon law, right?
Yeah.
But what's the whole principle of the whole thing? And you can apply that to God as well. God is natural in that sense. He works on principle, but he's not like he.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I don't know exactly how God operates for obvious reasons, but it's not like he's just micromanaging.
Don't you?
As if everything.
Well, you're obviously not a Protestant. They all do. You foolish boy.
Didn't you read the book?
No, aren't you a Calvinist? Calvinists know how God operates exactly. In fact, they get very upset if you tell them they don't.
Should have checked their spreadsheets. They've already got it all figured out.
It's only black and white, no colour.
As long as you just apply the algorithm, you'll know exactly how God works. Yeah.
In the case of Calvinists, it's 2 + 1 = 7. Yeah. And always 7. Yeah. No, but it's the thing is, I think Catholicism highlighted that to me in a very, very good way, and then a lot of other things that have happened in the last 3 years reinforced it. But the reality is that people are like that about everything. My new hero of philosophy at the moment is Professor Cipolla, who defined the 5 laws of human stupidity, and his first law is awesome. I mean, he's an Italian guy that moved to the States, but it's a proper paper. He did it in the scientific fashion, and his first law, which is the most fundamental law, is that there are always more idiots than you can possibly imagine. Whatever number you come up with as the number of idiots around you, it's always higher than that. And his final law is that idiots are worse than what I think in the original, I think he called them pirates or bad actors, like evil people. Because, like a pirate wants to rob ships or steal stuff, or, a bad guy, he's got a plan. He's trying to do evil, bad shit because he's got a purpose. While an idiot will cause untold damage just because he's an idiot without even knowing when or how or why he did it. It just, yeah, I'm an idiot, So blow shit up because yeah, just like riding my truck with smoking a cigarette and it's got petrol leaking and it's a petrol tanker, kills 50 people because he's too stupid to know any better. And like he's basically saying the stupidity of humanity is like, and apparently Einstein said this too, but I didn't know this when I was 15 when I coined this. And I said, you know what? There's only two things that I'm sure are infinite, or that I think are infinite. One's the universe and the other one's human stupidity. And I'm not really sure about the universe. The universe is dodgy, but human stupidity, I absolutely am certain that's got no, that's endless. Apparently Einstein said it too, but I remember that when I coined it, I was telling people around, and they were like, "Oh, you're so harsh," Like, no, I've just understood more.
So I wanted to, that whole thing about everything working on multiple levels. That is true, though. I mean, that's why the mechanical thinking thing was so interesting to try and talk about and mention,
Yeah,
because we see it affecting us on one level, the personal level, right? Like paying attention to things, thinking, having relationships. But then we see it in the bureaucratic level and the societal level, where if everyone starts doing it,
yeah,
that's how we start putting kids into school and they get them to train to be that way. We start running like systems like it. We get these crazy types of laws that we've got, and they're all a result of the same thing. And at the
yes,
highest level, even your prayer life is affected by it,
yes,
because there is such a thing as mechanizing prayer, which is
absolutely.
definitely the wrong thing to do,
Yeah,
because God is not an equation. He is logical
yeah,
because he is logos itself, but he is a person as well. I mean, one of the things I've learned in my own experience with this, combining this with philosophy and stuff, is this whole idea of like logic. It's been a weird thing for me to understand, but logic is not mechanical, but it is
no,
logical.
it is, yeah.
That's the paradox, right?
That's exactly.
Um,
I always make the example of that is the Russian astronomers compared to the American astronomers, because the Russian astronomers think more like I think. Like they logically they can conclude certain things, but the collaboration between Russian astronomers and American astronomers is that the Russian astronomer will come out with something that says, "I think wormholes can be used to travel through space, but I don't have the mass to prove it. Can you like do the math to just check my work?" And then the American guy's like, "Well, that's a crazy thought. How would you even come up with that?" Okay, let me do the math. And then like, oh yeah, the math works out. So it's quite. I think logic is superior to mathematics
yeah,
because
absolutely. And for what it is that logic or reason properly understood,
yeah,
again, it is consistent, it is logical, but it works non-linearly, right?
yeah,
Whereas mechanisms must work linearly, and that's what really makes
yeah.
it fluid and broad and expansive and that kind of
Well,
thing.
in advanced
Um,
mathematics, it doesn't
and
necessarily even
yeah,
have to be linear. But the thing is about logic is I think it supersedes mathematics as a, again, to me, philosophy,
yeah,
logic,
yeah,
maths, science. They're bubbles with it, they're sets, they're
mm,
subsets and
yeah, I
stuff.
agree with that.
So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
well, I don't know if well, people must still think something is useful because there's still 15 of them, even though I think a lot of them we've been going for 2.5 hours. Oh well.
I was going to say, yeah, it's been
Yeah.
a while.
You bastard, Tony, you've delayed my book editing for another day.
Well, sure, with someone as big and kind-hearted as you can forgive me for it, can't you? Can't
Hat,
you? Oh, you're so
Willie
cute.
Ram says, hat tip to the multitude of unnamed men keeping everything working in spite of the idiots breaking what they can. There's a cool graphic novel that was written a
Yeah.
while ago called Martha Washington Goes to War. And it was written, I think, more than 10 years ago, like now, maybe even 15 or so. And it's basically about this black woman in the future where they've got spaceships and stuff. But a recurring theme throughout this graphic novel, kind of like The Watchmen, there's a recurring theme behind the main plot, is like the people in the background, the mechanic. Oh, you can't fix anything nowadays. Oh, just have to get a new one. Oh, I just can't get good help. Everybody's fucking lazy and no one like fixes shit. Stuff just breaks and people are like, can't be helped, can't be helped. But you're a mechanic. Fix my fucking spaceship. It's like, no, yeah, I don't have the parts. No, it takes too long. And it's all like that in the background. That's what's going on. And I mean, look around. We're there. And we don't have the spaceships even. It's terrible. Not that they tell us anyway. I think we do, but
I
I
thought
don't
it
have
was
one.
called. I thought it was called cultural enrichment. From what I can tell.
Oh, it's just generic retardation on every level, man. I mean,
Yeah,
they're operating that on so many levels. It's just like Stinky Peter says, hats off to the Deltas. Yeah, yeah.
that was like first.
Woolly Ram, first intelligent conversation I've had this week.
And it's the end of the week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. Mind you, actually, I had a pretty decent conversation. I went to, the cats just keep multiplying, so I had to get one of the cats spayed. I went to pick her up, and so on the way, I like stopped, grab a coffee, and I had a really, and the electrician guy was there with a friend of his, and just because he's an electrician, I mentioned the Tesla thing, and man, we spent about 45 minutes talking about Tesla, and the other guy knew exactly. He said, that tower that he had like a 30-meter. He like knew the detail. I was like, you're the first man that knows exactly what the hell I'm talking about when I say Tesla, and not just that, but like some of his inventions. You guys, they looked at me like, yeah, well, if you're curious, you'll know about this shit. And I mean, you know what this village is like, right? It's like a crossroads, basically. And they're like,
Yeah,
the average guy in this village has got more random knowledge about things than the people I fucking worked with for years in London that were like, went to like good schools and had plenty of money and like were doing well in life. Tesla, who is that? Oh, Serbian guy. Well, he did some cables, did he? It's just so weird. Wally says, well, if you watch any of the Lewis Rockman videos, he shows you how things are being made to be unrepairable. Yeah, they are. Well, just look at cars. I mean, fuck. If when I was a kid, if cars were being built
sorry,
then,
I'm gonna turn my heater off. I'll be back in a sec. Carry on, I can
yeah,
still
yeah.
hear you.
If when I was a kid, they built cars the way they build them now, my whole family would have died because we used to go on these like hunting trips with my dad that were like, over 1,000 k's through desert with no water to like get to like not even a civilized place, like a place that's got other people. And our car would break down regularly. And it was like Land Rovers and Land Cruisers that you could basically fix with like, you didn't even need baling wire, or even duct tape. If you just had like a bit of spit and a plaster, you could probably get the car going again. You did that now with one of the cars you have now and it broke down, you'd be fucked. That's it, you'd be dead. You're like, well, we don't have enough water to like walk the desert. The car's fucked, and we just shoot ourselves to like make it less painful, I suppose. But it was
Pointing out
just
the fact that most modern cars need a fucking like computer to fix them.
yeah. Even
So they
I
work
mean,
electronic.
my car is like 20 years old and it still needs a computer as well. It's just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Stinky Peterson says, have you shared your thoughts on the Irish riots yet? I think that everything I need to say has already been said by McGregor, the notorious MMA dude, who is now being investigated for a hate crime.
Yeah.
Because when they asked what should happen to the guy, he said torture and death. And now it's been, and he's in his car, his big car, and he's like, yeah, come after me, fuck you. Just like, I'm not a fan of the guy because whenever I've seen him, he's been such an arrogant prick, and he's always been very personal in his attacks to the other fighters and whatever, in a very kind of nasty way, going on about their wives and all sorts, I think. And I get it that that's kind of the game and it's marketing and whatever, but I come from an age and a mentality. I was raised by basically my dad was like, was he Venetian but half
Yeah,
Japanese
you
in
don't
his
bring
head.
people with family into it. Even that's like mafia rules, isn't it? Even
It's
in the
just
mafia.
fuck you, dude.
My
You do
mother,
that
my
shit,
mother,
I'm gonna take you out in the ring. Fuck the ref. If I can bite your ear off like Mike did, I'll bite your ear off because poke your fucking eye out. Fuck you. And I'll just be, it was a mistake. Yeah, but you were pounding his head after we like had 3 people trying to pull you off. Heat at a moment. Heat at a moment.
Yeah.
It's like, so I don't like him because of that. But the thing is, I like him because of what he's done now. Because he's like, fuck you. I mean, whether you like him or not, you got to respect that he is what he is. He's not like he's not making an apology or trying to like dodge anything. He's just like, fuck you, that's who I am. So I respect that. That I got to give the guy that who can't whatever. And who knows? Maybe 1-to-1 he's okay. Because there's guys like that. There's a boxer that I actually met him once. I bumped into him in the street in London actually, and I had a quick chat with him. I forgot his name. He was the black guy who he was the only boxer that did like I think I can't remember some ridiculous number of fights in 1 year. Oh man, I can't. Why can't I remember names? It's so horrible. But he was the only guy that did like I don't know 30 fights or something in a year, and you got hurt from them. You got damaged a bit. And I literally he was walking out of a club or something like a gentleman, like broad daylight. He was walking out of some pub or something like a well-to-do place, and I just I'm good with faces, but I never met the guy. Only saw him on TV, and he was a kind of guy. I didn't like him on TV the first time I saw him because I thought the first time I watched a whole boxing match with him, he was fighting this. He was the defender of the title, and the white dude that was fighting him was like a kind of a newbie. But the white dude was doing everything professionally right, hiding, doom, doom, doom. And the dude was like, like, fuck you, like teasing him, dancing around. And when the break came, he just walked around like, I don't need to sit down, fuck you, like just being an arrogant prick. And the other guy didn't let it get to him. He just kept working, doing his thing. And the whole time I was like, at that time I didn't know who he was. I was like, fuck this black dude, I want him to go down just because I don't like his attitude. At the end of the fight, as soon as the fight ended, and then they were getting the judges, and one judge voted for him, one judge voted for the other guy, and him, this oh man, I hate calling him the black guy. He deserves for me to remember his name, but I've got holes in my fucking brain. Anyway, and he turned around to the white dude that he was fighting. He looks at him and he goes, looks at him like, dude, it's close. Maybe you won, maybe I won. And there I thought, oh fuck, it was all an act. And then I can't remember who won, but as soon as the judgment was, he went to hug the other guy, and it was like you could still hear what he was saying from the mic. You're like, oh dude, that was one of the toughest fights I had. You're a brilliant fighter. Like I really enjoyed. It was really good. Thank you for the fight. Full respect to the guy. So he was like fucking with him the whole fucking 15 rounds because it went the whole. And there I thought, wow, what a guy. What a. It's not my style, not my way, but he wasn't what I thought he was. And so I remembered him, and then after that I started watching his fights, and then I realized, fuck, this guy he's done something that no other boxer did, basically. Chris Eubank! Thank you, okay. That's the man. Thank you. Chris Eubank. And I bumped into him in London, and it was such a weird thing, because like, he was coming, I'd already almost gone past him, and I just I'm like, huh? I stopped in the street, like, and you know what I'm like. I'm not like I don't give a crap about like celebrities or like actors that have walked past me, like famous actors, and like people are like, oh, like yeah, fuck him, man. So what? He's a guy who acts in movies. And so I was like, yeah. And I did remember his name. I don't know how, but that day I was like, Mr. Eubanks, and he goes, hi. I'm like, you don't know me. I've only seen you on TV. But man, you're one of the best boxers I've ever seen. I just wanted to say, I'm not going to bother you. I'm sorry to stop you, but can I shake your hand? And he was like, yes, of course you can. Like, I love your and I told him the whole story. I told him I saw the first fight I saw with you. I hated you. I thought you were just teasing at the guy and you were being rude and like disrespectful. And then I saw you at the end of the fight, and I've never forgotten. And I've watched all your fights. I've watched your fights. You did some of the. You're one of the best boxers. You're like one of my favorite dudes ever. And he was like, thank you so much for telling me that. Like, and I won't keep you now and bye-bye. But it was like, I'm so glad I got a chance to tell him. It was like, he's such a cool guy. So maybe McGregor's like that, And another guy that I think I would like him is Tyson Fury.
Tyson Fury, I knew you were going to say that.
I did a little blog post. I kind of used him as an example, which I didn't realize. The picture I picked, we kind of look a little bit similar in that picture, And I was like, oh, people are going to think I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't
He's
care.
a fascinating boxer to watch. I mean, I don't watch boxing very much, but my cousins are really into it, and they're huge into Tyson Fury. He showed me a few of his fights. and he's got a really interesting style of fighting. It seems like one of the most unorthodox
He
ones I've
punches
seen.
quite straight, doesn't he? I think.
But it's the fact that he drops his hands quite a lot. Like the other guys I
Yeah,
saw him fight against always had very very good kind of standard form, but he
yeah.
wouldn't. He would kind of like
No, yeah,
relax a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit,
But
use
you know
his
what?
short,
He's
use his
conserving
shoulders.
energy
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's the same. It's almost like he's got a like systema kind of way of doing
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Naturally,
yeah,
he got there by himself. But that guy's alive, dude. That guy's had a fucking hard life. He's like that's why, and the stuff he's come back from, man. And married to the same woman, he's like, I know he's kind of over the top in so many ways, but like
He is a showman, though. Again,
he
like
is.
on the flip
That's the
side, like
thing.
McGregor, he's
But
a showman.
but the thing is, I genuinely think that whatever. If I were to have a cup of beer, a cup of coffee, or whatever, if I was to sit down at dinner with Tyson Fury, I'm sure we'd get along. I'm sure we'd have
I
like a
get the
good
impression that
talk.
he's fundamentally an authentic dude.
Yeah, and I don't actually think he's an arrogant guy at all. I think he just says what he thinks.
Yeah,
And he thinks what he thinks, and he's not going to fucking back down from it. But I think if you get past that level of like, oh, who the fuck are you? You know what you want from me? Fuck you, I'm Tyson
yeah.
Fury, which is his way of getting rid of the idiots. I think once you get past that, I think he's probably a very humble guy. I think he's actually, I think he's like, what's up with so many MMA fighters being degenerates in their private lives? Sean O'Malley openly cheats on his wife. Well, Tito Ortiz was like supposedly married or whatever to Jenna Jameson, or I don't know. I don't follow that shit anymore. I used to. I watched a little bit of the original UFC stuff. I used to watch that because that was like no weight class. It was just like it was literally like almost like gladiators, the closest thing to Roman Roman gladiators that you used to have then. I mean, there's like a 300-kilo guy against like a 90-kilo guy, and the 90-kilo guy
Yeah,
wins.
yeah,
It's like fucking
yeah,
incredible shit. But yeah, I did after that. Went like very sort of commercial. I mean, I'm not saying anything about those guys. I used to like Ken Shamrock, but he went like worldwide wrestling thing, I think, and yeah, whatever. Like people do what they're gonna do. But yeah, I don't really watch that stuff anymore. I think what I've been actually watching quite a bit of is and again I forget his name. In the United States, he's very well known, like handgun shooter. Well, handgun, shotgun. He shoots like the guy's fired hundreds of thousands of rounds, and he's one of the fastest. I think he's got the fastest like pistol shooting and draw and fire shooting and like shotgun. Like he'll throw up like 10 fucking clay pigeons. He'll throw them and like shoot all of them with a shotgun before they like hit the ground. There's like I've been watching some of that stuff just because I don't know. It's a different skill that I suppose it's a natural progression. If like I don't know, five young 35, 20 between 20 and 35-year-olds with clubs decide that they want to mug me. I don't want to do like the Steven Seagal when he was young thing anymore. Fuck that. I just bam, bam, bam. Fuck it. Just one of the Indiana Jones stuff.
yeah.
So yeah. Willie Ram says when you have fame and money, you have more temptations and probably more of a libido to contend with. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's actually true. I mean, in my little experience of that, like when I wrote The Face on Mars in South Africa, and I was like doing book signings and stuff. Man, it was just, and I didn't succumb to it, but I rejected it so much that it probably, if I'd been able to handle it better, I probably would be a lot further along in like the writing career, if you want to call it that, because I was so disgusted by how the same people that I known for 10 years like totally reacted to me completely. Oh, you're an author now, and like, and then I'd get invited to these dinners or whatever. That were, were fine. Some of them were nice and whatever, but random women just would come up and like, oh yeah, oh, what are you doing later? And it's like, lady, you don't fucking know me. You literally just picked up a book that I wrote. You don't know what's in it. You haven't got a clue. The three questions you've asked me about it demonstrates to me without a shadow of a doubt that you haven't got a clue about this topic, and you probably don't give a shit about it, and probably don't understand it. And just because I fucking signed my name on it and I've got my name in print, basically now gonna, spread your legs if I take you up on it. And it's like, and that this Jewish guy that I used to like work with as a bodyguard, and he was, oh, but man, that's cool. I know, well, that's so cool. So do you bang? I was like, no, dude, it's not cool. It's actually not good because it's got nothing to do with me or who I am or any, they don't know. It's just like, oh, he's famous and maybe he's got money. Or it's just like, I said, look, and it said, well, but what does it feel like? He was trying to understand, and I was like, I'll tell you what it feels like. Do you know when you go and take a crap and it's a really good crap? You just got it out of your system and it's like, it feels good. Well, it's not even that. It's like when you go take a shit and it's a nominal shit. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just like, I have to do this. Push it out. That's it. And he just burst out laughing. He goes, oh, fuck, only you could come up with that analogy. But yeah, okay, I get it now. Like, it's a nominal shit. It's not even a good shit. It's just, but yeah, I like now I could roll with it a lot easier. But again, my little samurai brain at the time was like, this is wrong. Why you treat me different? I have to cut your head off now. It was I mean, it was fuck, man. Some of the sick. There was like husbands that would basically throwing their wives at me just because I don't know. Maybe they can kiss where I put my dick. I don't know. It's just it was just wrong. And I mean that was like a book in South Africa. Imagine, if you are whatever Elon Musk or if you are a famous actor that just like fuck, it must be intolerable. I don't know. It would be sad. But let's see. We've been going nearly 3 hours. I think we've probably worn out the ears of anybody that's gone through the whole thing. But yeah. I've been watching a bit of that guy Stephen Barrett. He does these interviews like Diary of a CEO, and very young guy. It's fun. I didn't know the guy was in Botswana. I was like, what? You came from Botswana? What the fuck? So partly because of that, I started. He interviews very interesting people, and he's made a shitload of money. I don't know how he made his money or whatever, but he does interview some interesting people. He also interviews like fucking what Jordan Peterson and people that I won't bother with. But it's quite interesting. Like, he does a good job as an interview, and I'm thinking, his things can be like 2 hours long, whatever. I'm thinking we're doing 3 hours and we're just shooting the shit on random topics, but like, that's good. It's all good. It's probably the difference of why I've got like a couple of thousand subscribers and he's got like 4 million, but there we go. Woolly ram sounds like a honey trap. Maybe. I didn't even think of that. Possibly. Yeah, I don't know. But a honey trap on me at that time, it wouldn't have worked. I would have just been like, I'm done now. He'd be like, hey, we're gonna put our sex tape on video if you don't. I'd be like, I don't give a shit. Put it on Larry King. I'll comment on my own performance. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah, I'll tell you how good your own wife was.
Exactly. I was like, it's, shit like that is, I don't know. I'm sure everybody's got something they wouldn't want to be out there in the fucking 50-inch screens all around the planet, but fuck it. If it happens, it happens. I mean, and the thing is, the ridiculous thing is like when they try and do that shit where it's like, oh, this fuck politicians because I don't care about them, but whatever, like some sports guy or some guy and they try and get him on like something like, oh, he did this and oh, he had sex in like a van or whatever. It's like the guy doing the reporting. It's just happened recently, right? The fucking guy that was in charge of like, I don't know, children's thing, and he's now been arrested for fucking child porn and molesting kids and it's like, wait, you are trying to fucking play the moral card on me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm certainly not a fucking saint, but compared to you, you're a journalist. I mean, that would be my go-to be like, I'm sorry, you're a journalist. In my scheme of the world, you're far, but far below, really far below. You've got no idea how far below you are a crack cocaine prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
She's like a princess compared to where the fuck I put you on the scale of human beings. I don't know. But again, average person, you say that to, like, ew, this guy's kind of weird. He's got this strange ideas that journalists are dishonest people.
So
Well,
yeah,
that was
the
another
thing.
thing at the bar, because I was like, oh, did you hear about this? And I was mentioning about the whole, like, violence against women. I was like, what a lot of fucking shit. And then you go look at the stats. Who gets killed more, men or women? Fucking men, obviously, like 3-4 times the amount. So
Yeah,
what about violence against men? Fuck.
yeah,
But anyway, and he was like, who died? And it was like literally on every newspaper, on every TV channel, in the schools, in the church, at workplaces. They had to have a minute of silence for this dead chick who's like, okay, fine, I'm sorry for her that she's dead, but what about the one that got chopped up by some like random African dude? That doesn't get the news. But anyway, and I'm
yeah.
like, well,
Just selective hypocrisy, isn't it?
yeah, of course, and I say, and he's like, sorry, what's that? Who's that? And I was like, that's impressive. He goes, no, I'm sorry, but I don't watch it. I was like, no, I don't watch the news either. I don't read the newspapers either. I only found out because my daughter came home from school and I was like, Dad, who the fuck's this person? I was like,
I've had
how the fuck
I've
should
had
I know,
lots of
kid?
yeah.
And she's like,
I've,
no, but is she like someone famous? I'm like, I don't fucking know. You go Google. Why
yeah,
the fuck are you asking me? And she's like, no, but, she got killed. I'm like, when? Like, what, did you get burnt at the stake? Why the fuck did you know about this in school? Like, I mean, my brain, I was like, what happened, darling? Tell me. So what was going on in school? Was she a famous person? It's like, no, she got killed like 2 days ago. Okay, well, what happened? And then it was like, oh, she got stabbed by a boyfriend or whatever. Like, why? Wait, why do you know this? Oh,
yeah,
we had to have a minute of silence at school. And I was like, what?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Now Daddy's going to explain a few things. So, she's so funny, man. Like, all our kids are actually hilarious. The shit they come
They
up
are
with.
all real characters. Yeah, I'll definitely say
It's like,
that.
and she's actually I gotta say, she probably is the princess of the lot. She's the mildest, nicest, kindest. She's got her little evil streak when she wants to, but it's very conscious and thought out, and there's usually a reason behind it. But she is nice and funny and whatever. But she'd come up with little zingers now and then. Like, even we had like some of her friends stayed over, and then when it was her birthday, like she had a little birthday party here, and like they all had a sleepover and stuff, and we actually managed to run out of beds, so it's like, no, we're all gonna sleep together in the same bed. I'm like, oh, okay, do what you want, girls. It's like, and then she goes to her friends' places now and stuff. And but even between each other, when we were all like having lunch, and even her friends, man, they're switched on. The kids in this little village, they're like kind of like, I remember, like, oh yeah, kids are smart. Like, I remember when I was a kid in the conversation, like, they're very switched on. They're like funny, and they'll like come up with like little thing. There was like one girl that was like, oh shit, I already know what I want to do when I grow up. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna work as one of the janitors in the school. I'm just gonna work with her. Like, dude, before you get into the workplace, she's probably gonna be dead. She's like, like, she's old. She's like 90 or something. Nah, I'll just sit there. Even if she doesn't work, I'll do the work, and she just sits there and keeps me company. And one of the other girls was like, what, are you gonna be a janitor? I mean, like, that's not really a cool job. And he goes, it's not a cool job. Are you fucking stupid? She gets like 4 months holidays. She only really work. What does she have to do? Clean a couple of toilets? How long does that
Yeah,
take? 15 minutes? Fuck it. Work for 15 minutes, and I can just talk shit to her and do, like, play on my phone, do other shit. And I get enough to live. That's enough. I
yeah,
don't need to own a Ferrari. Like, you're thinking, oh, she's the simple girl, and like, no, she's thought this shit through. She's
yeah.
like,
She's actually the one who's falling
fucking,
through.
she's actually smart. And by the time she's working as a janitor, they'll probably pay them the same money that they pay a fucking manager, because no one
Yeah,
wants to do that job. You know,
yeah,
it's like they come up with some really funny stuff, man. Like, one of the presents they gave my kid was like this packet had been wrapped and wrapped and wrapped and wrapped, and it's like, it would tape, it had duct tape, it had, like, she took about 45 minutes to undo it. And in the end, she said, "Dad, you rip it open for me." I was like, oh,
Can
that'd
you
be
get the
cheating.
chainsaw, please?
Yeah, no, they eventually relented and said, "Okay, your dad can use it, but he can't use scissors. He has to like have to
Mm.
pull it apart for us." Yeah. What's Wooly saying? Links back to mechanical thinking. The powers that be have a short book of tricks, and their minions try to apply them to all targets. Guess it works with. It does work with large numbers. I mean, in a sense, they're winning. I was having that conversation again with a guy, one of my friends that I've met here. I told him, look, that's why they're doing all this shit. That I was talking about it. That's why they're doing all this shit. So it's like you can't complain. You can't say. I mean, can you imagine if you teleported like 1,000 guys from the year 1095? I've just picked that date at random. Catholic men, 1095. That had
Doing some heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just teleport 1,000 of those guys into here, and so that we could speak the same language. And we just, for about 2 hours, we explained to them how things work in this country now. It would take the time because they don't know how to drive. But if they understood the concept, they'd be like, no, we don't know how to do that shit. So now you go and get some fucking trucks, or you show us where the trucks are. We'll take the trucks for you. And then you get us all on the trucks and you drive us to Rome. And within the time it takes you to drive from here to Rome and give it another 5 hours, they'll have taken the entire fucking Vatican back and the whole city. And they will have taken the government over and will be like, we don't give a shit about your guns. This guy showed me how to pull the trigger. It's good enough for me. They would change the country in a day. Within a fucking week, the whole government would be overthrown and things would go back to it. And those are the guys they're scared of. Those are the guys they're trying to make sure don't exist anymore. And so I was talking to my friend and I was like, so we don't have another 995 of us or whatever it is. So we got to think different. You got to remove yourself from society and just make your own little enclave. Just, nope, I don't want to be on the grid. I don't want to be on anything. I don't want to need your food. I don't want to need your paper money or your digital money or any of your shit. I'm going to build a fucking wall. And then you're going to have to eventually, I know it'll come, eventually you're going to try and send a tank to take down the wall. But that gives me another 10, 15, 20 years to produce a lot of children, train them, and get more people inside the walls. And then good luck, because then I'll have reached 1,000. Give me 20 years, I'll have reached 1,000. Then you got a problem. And that's all it is. But who thinks that way? Who thinks 20 years ahead? The Japanese, maybe. The Chinese, yeah. In Europe, you and me and the other set of accountants. That's about it. Yeah. But anyway, I think we should say goodnight to our friends. It's almost 3 hours on the dot. So thank you all for listening to our ramblings. And don't get mechanized. You see, this was very organic. It was all thought through, all very well thought through, so that you wouldn't get caught up in any one thought. How long would it take to train a crusader to use and maintain a modern weapon? A few weeks. No. Hours. It would take hours. Because you wouldn't need to teach them how to maintain the weapon. If I got 1,000 crusaders, I would be their armorer. I'd be like, just take me with you. I'm the stupid little gay guy that cleans your guns. Because, I know that compared to the average crusader, I'm like a pansy. Really, read the Crusades. Honestly, if you read that book, you can't A, not want to be Catholic, and B, not understand how weak we've become. But it would take hours. It would take hours to give them the concept of gun. Hours of making them shoot so they get used to the thing, the noise and whatever. And after that, they don't need to be like snipers and take people out at 1,000 meters. You need 3 guys like that out of 1,000. That's it. 3 is too many probably. They would take out imagine your average cop now. So I shoot. There's 1,000 of them, and they all go fucking go. Oh, okay. No, look, guys, just don't kill us. That's what would happen.
How do I do the paperwork if I don't have his birth records? He was born 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got no address.
And this is why we need to build our own wormhole, because apparently you can time travel with them, possibly. It's like, bring Bohemond, I've wanted to meet you for so long. He'd probably go like, you foul demon beast. You know, came out of a portal of magic.
Yeah,
Magic there,
exactly.
had to kill him. It's like, oh shit. Was trying to save the world and instead just random casualty or 1,000 years back.
You're both there, like carrying rocks in purgatory. Like, yeah, I've got a story to tell you. I thought you've got time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot of explaining, but I love your work, by the way. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, I think we're going to say good night. It's 3 hours on the dot. So God bless you all. Thank you very much.
God bless you all. Yeah, thanks for the stream. Yeah, until next time.
Good
Okay.
night. Yeah.